Vito landed on American soil. Despite having only pennies to his name, Victor smoked a cigar to honor his pursuit of opportunity and success. Starting with that first cigar, a tradition was born. In the Vito family, cigars came to represent pride in accomplishments and optimism for the future, and they still do. More than a century later, Victor Vito's great-grandson Marco honors his heritage with Marco V Cigars. Marco and his team's commitment to quality, flavor, and construction have established the company as a premier boutique cigar brand. Too often, with mass-manufactured cigars, you don't get what you pay for. With Marco V Cigars, we deliver a perfect smoke every time. Go to www.marcovcigars.com to check those guys out now. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by, every episode of the podcast is sponsored by Tone Vault Audio and Media. Tone Vault Audio and Media was formed as a recording studio business by musicians in active gigging bands. Doing work over the years in multiple facilities as well as in a mobile fashion, simultaneously while performing and playing in live gigging bands. Tone Vault staff has the experience to know why quality, performance, and longevity of cables is important, as well as the demands needed for a great go-to top-of-the-line product for all your professional product needs, as well as live music applications. Go to www.tone-vault.com/JSE and use promo code 15SINGER to save 15% off your Tone Vault order, okay? This is exclusive to the listeners of this podcast. Nobody else gets this discount. So go to www.tone-vault.com/JSE. Use promo code 15, that's 15SINGER, to get yourself 15% off today. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Shooter Lube. Go to shooterlube.com and save 15% at checkout by using promo code SINGER and join the revolution. All right, let's get right after it. My guest for today, well, I should say my guests, are John and Marco and his dad, John. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me today. It's still early, maybe. Maybe that's my excuse. Marco V and his dad, John. Marco's the owner of Marco V Cigars. They are one of the new sponsors for the podcast, but I wanted to get them on because these guys are awesome. These guys are super cool. I don't need to say anything more about it. So fuck it. With no further ado, please welcome to the podcast Marco V and his dad, John.
Awesome.
I still don't understand. I fuck something up every time. Every single episode, something gets screwed up, and this time it was just the volume of that was so loud. That intro was so loud.
But was that a popular song for you?
No, I haven't released that yet.
Oh, I really like that.
Nobody's heard that. Nope, we're still working on it. I got to do a whole album, and that's like the one song that we've sort of finished.
And so you have your own singer then with that?
Yeah, my buddy Jeremy, he was in a band called Wither the Tide here, and then another band called Buried by Hope. Absolutely phenomenal singer. Yeah, I'll send you the version with lyrics.
For sure, I'd love to hear that.
Because if you like that,
yeah.
the one with lyrics is better because it's really catchy. His lyrics that he came up with, his vocals, I should say. Lyrics are a little weird, but he's weird. You know? I mean, listen to Led Zeppelin. Those fucking lyrics are weird too. You know what I mean? Like, that shit doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah,
but.
I don't know if being weird is a barrier to entry for the music industry, right? Yeah. Oh, my bad. Yeah, there we go. Appreciate it.
And you can move that to stay comfortable, all that good shit. Let me have you move back this way a touch. Okay. There you go. You look great. There we go. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you boys being here. We meet again.
Yeah.
We meet again.
Well, we're very proud that you are having us.
No, I'm excited, man. I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Are we live?
Yeah, we are officially live, boys.
Yeah.
No, and it's nice because, and I've been saying this to not make musicians feel bad, but it's nice to break out of the mold and not have another conversation with another metal or rock musician just to talk about other shit, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the 122nd episode, I think I remember. So, you know, after 100 something episodes, you just want to kind of diversify.
Right.
You know, I'm sure it's the same thing like when you guys first started off. You had your initial 3, right?
Right.
How long did that last before you were like, we need a new one? We got to do something different. Like, we need, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of that same deal.
Well, and it's like your, it's like the main message on your your podcast is, and I think it boils down to what we talked about before is that whole idea around passion and hobby. You can take a lot of the elements that we do in cigars or you do in music or one of your other hobbies, and you can find common elements. And I think that's the really cool part and fascinating part. So I could talk to someone who's in the wine industry or whiskey, and we can share those common elements, and that's what makes it really fascinating to us.
Yeah.
You can almost talk the same language even though it's different, and it's probably the same with music too. I mean, if we talked long enough, we could probably figure that out too.
Yeah, and there are definite commonalities in it because it comes down to exactly what you said: hobby versus passion, and hobbies turn into passions, and you become obsessed with things. And
right.
So I'm curious about that, and I do want to rehash a lot of the shit we already talked about when we met.
Sure. Yeah.
What was it, a month ago or whatever?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to rehash a lot of that, but
by the way, what do you think of that spot?
That's a cool fucking spot. I came away from that whole hangout with you guys just like my mind was kind of blown. Like, cigar shops in general are awesome, right? But then when you find one that's an actual lounge, it's like a whole new level. And then to find out there's like a secret spot that most people don't get to go to, it was awesome, man. It was like,
you're in a special company down there. Not everybody gets to go down there, but
you saw the big poker table down there.
So I mean, that's what's cool about a lot of these places is unique spots, and I think, as we've talked about, that's a trend in the cigar industry, especially in the Minnesota scene, is you're seeing some of these unique spaces pop up too.
Yeah, you were telling me about that private rooms that aren't, and that's how they're legally doing it. It's not illegal.
No,
it's a private room. Therefore, different rules.
Yeah, you think of like this work from home type setting, or not work from home, but these shared workspaces. So think about that. You got the swipe key, very minimal employees, and you use a swipe key to go in, and now you're in an environment where you can smoke cigars and maybe even have a drink. But it's a private room, so it's pretty cool.
And you guys were telling me one of them got in trouble because they were fucking. Maybe it was the place we were at, but some of them started getting in trouble because guys were bringing girls in there. They're getting all drunk, getting blowjobs, like all kinds of weird, shady shit was going on down there.
Yeah, you never, you never, people when you mix people, alcohol, and anything, anything can happen. But there are certain different levels of decorum based on the different private venues as well. But the one was it the one in Minneapolis where they ran into some issues, but right.
It was a shared building.
Right, that was part of the issue,
and there was a really loud gym downstairs that would have made it difficult for people to have nice quiet time smoking your cigars.
Right.
Big booming music going on,
but it was near a lot of bars, and it's open 24 hours a day, and so you come back from the bars, and some of them would bring some of those gals back, and the owner of that particular venue did not appreciate that.
Or they'd have poker games they'd get like 80 guys in there, and then it's just too many.
Right.
Yeah, you get that many dudes down there smoking cigars because it got smoky when it was just the three of us.
Oh, yeah. And there's not necessarily great ventilation on that one. There's ones that have fantastic ventilation, too.
Upstairs, they had pretty good ventilation.
Right.
But not down below.
Definitely.
I desperately want us to fix our boneheaded law about this because I want to be able to go to a public place like a cigar lounge or a bar and smoke a cigar and watch the game and drink some chocolate whiskey. If you guys had chocolate whiskey.
Yeah.
I had some when I was in Texas smoking at the Cigars International bar. Phenomenal place. Huge room, great sports bar atmosphere without the douchebaggery. Right. So there's no guys in the studded jeans and backwards hats. It's like kind of a classy place, but still has the sports bar vibe.
Yeah.
And almost everybody there is drinking like Macallan whiskey and like, you know what I mean, smoking expensive cigars and shit. You get your dirt bags in there too that are, coming in smoking a cigarello.
But you and I were talking about that too. Is And it's not just Texas, it's many other states that still allow that. And that experience of being able to go into a classier bar, have a Macallan whiskey or whatever, and smoke a cigar is lost in all these smoking bans. And it's too bad. And but where it does exist, it's really awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it really is. It's a completely different experience. And we were talking about this. It's not like smoking cigarettes. It's an experience. And it's frustrating because cigar lounges and cigar bars should not be regulated or looked at like regular bars.
Exactly.
Like, this is not somewhere you bring your kids for lunch.
No.
Everybody that's entering this building is going there to smoke a cigar.
Right.
They're okay with it. They're
Right.
consenting adults, basically.
Right.
Why is it that the government feels they're somehow protecting us by eliminating these spots?
Right.
If anything, they're pushing us to smoke cigars in our own homes
Right.
more, where we don't have proper ventilation. Like, if this, and it's constantly under the guise of that they're taking care of people and helping people.
Right.
And it's
the
like
Clean Air Act. Right.
Yeah, you're not doing shit.
Right.
You know, which I get some of the Clean Air Act stuff. You know, it's
Right.
like, yeah, if I have a 4-year-old and I need to take him out to eat, you know, we're out shopping, whatever. I'm in Maplewood. I got to stop at the Denny's. I don't want my kid to be there, you know, around the smoke.
Right, and even if there's a smoking section, you know, there's times where I'm eating, I don't want to sit and smell smoke while I'm eating too. So I get that, but what we're talking about is something completely different. It's a high-end lounge, maybe after a nice dinner. You go to this place, you sit down at this classy bar with great ventilation and a cigar.
You swipe your card to get in,
or just you know, some of these states you don't have. I mean, it's just part of the.
Well, I'm talking about Minnesota, you know.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Florida, Texas, Arizona has fantastic cigar bars everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the nicest ones that we've ever seen is called the Burn down in Naples, Florida. It's actually owned by Rocky Patel, and
No shit.
the highest of high-end bars you can imagine. Unbelievable selection of cigars, and then just unbelievable selection of booze. And like you said, you don't get the guys with the studded jeans and the backwards hats. You know?
When we go down,
Yeah, I'm the only one in that room saying, bro.
Exactly. Yeah.
we go down to the spring training for the Twins, Fort Myers. They have a place called the world's greatest cigar bar.
Yeah, I've heard about that place.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've seen
they
them
have-
on Instagram. Guys are like, drop $200. What a haul.
Exactly.
I mean, shit, if you're going with the Cohibas, that's only 10 cigars. You know?
Yeah, you can well, and then you get into some of that whiskey. You're moving through the tab pretty quickly.
Yeah, you guys have a pairing on your website. You guys have is it what because
Yeah, so
I'm
it's,
not a booze hound, so I can't remember.
Yeah, so
I have a great memory.
So just the background story of that is you know, we've been around for 13 years, and so we had created one of the first cigars we ever created was the Platinum Triple Maduro, which is 60 ring gauge by 5. And
Explain to people what that means.
yeah, so our Platinum is the name of the brand of the cigar under the Marco V Classico collection. The Triple Maduro, you know, refers to the 3 elements of the cigar. The binder, wrapper, and filler are all Maduro, which means they're grown full out in the sun, and so they're absorbing all the elements of the sun into that piece of the tobacco. So every cigar has 3 components: the binder, wrapper, and filler. All of those are Maduro, so it gives it that bold, rich taste of the tobacco. And then the 60 ring gauge refers to how thick the cigar is, and it's in 64ths.
If you put a 38 ring band on my little finger, that would be, and then this would be about a 60, and that's a 40.
Yeah, and so it refers to the gauge of the cigar, and then the 5 inches refers to how long the cigar is. And so that's what we started out with, was essentially one size, 60 ring gauge by 5 in a mild, medium, and full body format. But the Platinum Grand Reserve Triple Maduro was kind of our flagship product when we started. It's what it was our most popular cigar, still is one of our most popular cigars today. And the winemaker at the Chateau St. Croix winery, which happens to be in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, the winemaker there, that was his favorite cigar, and he's like, look, we can create. When I smoke cigars, this is him talking, I like a port, which is it's an infused wine, dessert wine, and it's intended for, after you have a nice dinner, you sit down with a cigar and you smoke the cigar with a nice port. It's like an after dinner drink. And so he created this fantastic port and specifically paired it with our triple Maduro Platinum Grand Reserve. And so
he invited us up.
Right.
Come on up. He had a little room for smoking cigars at the winery. He just said, let's do a deal. I'll make your wine for you guys and you provide me with cigars. So
right. And so he was trained out in Europe. And so actually, if you go out to the winery, it looks like a castle from Europe. It's a pretty fascinating place. If anybody hasn't been out there, we highly recommend it.
And it's the Chateau
St. Croix.
Chateau St. Croix.
Yeah, and so that relationship started in like 2012. So we've had a relationship with this winery probably for 9 years, and so they created this port for us, and now we've morphed that into
red wine.
Really nice, unbelievably fantastic red wine.
That's cool as shit.
And it's paired with our cigars, so we go out and do a ton of events out there, and it's been a really fun relationship. And because, like you were talking about, a lot of it's about experience. And so when we started this brand, we wanted it to be about experience. And so, because that's what attracted me to the business was the idea of enjoying a cigar like we're doing now, or enjoying a cigar as a celebratory element to a success that you have had. And it's not always all about the cigar too. It's what, like, you're drinking a Dr. Pepper with the cigar. You're enhancing the flavor of that. And so we wanted to create these unique experiences with the cigar. And so we have the port that's paired with the Platinum Grand Reserve. And then we also have a coffee that's paired with our Diamond or our Dom blends, which is meant to be like a morning smoke that you drink with, or that you smoke with your coffee. And so we've created these pairings that are also under our brand. So it's we want to be looked at as more of an experience brand more than necessarily a single product. So it's been a fun experience.
Are you guys morning smokers? Do you guys smoke cigars in the morning?
In the summertime.
In the summertime, or I guess it all depends on, if you're golfing early in the morning, we'll smoke cigars, or if you're on vacation.
Why in the summertime, yes, but not in other seasons?
You have to pretty much smoke in Minnesota outdoors. Not too many indoor.
Or in the studio.
The studio is definitely awesome. But if you're on vacation, we're smoking in the mornings, or if we're out on work.
You guys smoke cigars every day?
He does.
I do.
Yeah. And if you're in the shops sitting down with owners, you're smoking. When we travel for the cigar business, you're smoking around the clock. But it's more about that experience of the camaraderie, and that's essentially what the brand is built on. Is the brand is built on a cigar to help celebrate the monument, the moments throughout your life.
Yeah, and you have a quote on your website that I really like. I threw it in the promo, and it was not just about celebrating success, but also about celebrating opportunities, and things like that for the future. And I that really rang true with me, because I love to do that. Like, I got this great idea. I'm gonna sit down and smoke a cigar. And like sometimes I'll put my headphones on and crank up the music so I don't get distracted by the wife or the dogs or anything. Sometimes I like to sit in silence.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to sit down, smoke the cigar, and just ruminate on this idea and like, see, can I scale this? Like, is this something that's real and long term with multiple levels, or is this just like a cute little thing we're just going to do real quick. It's awesome. I love it.
That's what, in fact, it's funny you bring that up, because in our first conversation, I saw a little bit of myself in you as well, because I noticed that about you is you have big ideas and you're always thinking about the future, and that's exactly right. In fact, that's how this business was born, and some of the new ideas and ventures that we've worked on is I'll have a whiteboard in my garage where I'm smoking a cigar and drinking a whiskey, and I'm just writing down ideas like crazy, thinking about the future. And that's exactly what the cigar represents and the brand represents for Marco V. It's not about the rich guy who's sitting there smoking the Rocky Patels or the highest end cigars. This is a cigar for the guy who's got their eye on the future and really trying to figure out what those next steps are to become that.
I love that, dude, because those fucking expensive cigars, some of them are great,
Yeah,
when you get into a 12,
for sure.
Sometimes you get into a $12 to $15 cigar, it's great. But dude, if I'm knocking a few beers back, or like I said, if I'm just in a creative process, I don't like drinking when I'm creative.
Yeah.
Because, however, many times I have my moments of brilliance while I'm shit faced. But either way, man, like I'd wake up the next morning and be like, I smoked $40 worth of cigars last night, and I would just feel guilty. Like I would have this like sick feeling, and it wasn't nicotine overdose; it was guilt. And I was just like, fuck, I can't keep doing this. It's like this is not. And I argued with myself, should I slow down and like make it to where I only smoke like one cigar a week so I really enjoy it? And I was like, nah, fuck that, man.
So maybe this is a good part of the
story.
The story to inject on how the idea for Marco V came about for the cigars, because I think it pertains exactly to what you're talking about. Is the reason why I started Marco V Cigars was almost exactly what you're talking about. Is I liked smoking cigars like a lot of people, but I liked the 60 ring gauge cigar, the big one that I wanted the quality be guaranteed. And so I'd go into the shops, much like everybody else does, and that cigar was between $12 and $15 in Minnesota. And so then I was like, had that same guilt that you're talking about. It's like, I want to enjoy this experience, but I don't want to wake up with that particular guilt. So I went to buying online, through these big catalogs, and
just like we all do.
Yeah. And one out of every 3 cigars I would smoke would canoe up the side, or the quality couldn't be guaranteed. And I had guilt about that. I was like, oh my gosh. And so, the idea came is, okay, if I take at the time I was going through business school, and if I took those elements and took the business plan that I was learning how to write, could I create a cigar where I could control the whole entire supply chain and create a cigar that was between that $6 and $9 range, that had all of the elements that I was looking for in that $12 to $15 cigar. Now, there's a ton of different variables that go into that, from tax to shipping to everything that goes into it. But exactly what you had mentioned is I wanted to have a cigar that had the flavors I liked, the size I liked, the quality I liked, where I wouldn't have that guilt in the morning. So you hit exactly on the head of why we started Marco V Cigars.
That's dope. So let's stay on that. And we did kind of talk about this before, but especially for the listeners, because I think this is fascinating. So exactly, once you had this idea, you kind of had this business plan in mind.
Right.
How did you execute this plan? Because you told me you came in at a weird time, which, if you think about it, is actually fucking kind of genius, dude. You came in at the end of the cigar boom of the 90s. Yeah, so true. when the industry was declining is when you decided to jump in. Explain that, how that went down, because I think this is fascinating.
And taxes were going through the roof.
It's even and it's even worse than the timing is even worse than what you even described, because you had all these other macro events occurring as well. And so we launched exactly in 2009. It was the heart of the recession. It was Obama had just rolled out a federal tax on cigars, which had never happened before in the cigar industry. Minnesota had just raised the state tax, and smoking bans were sweeping the country. So you want to talk about
Incidentally, Minnesota's tax was 95%.
Right at
that time.
Yeah.
They wanted to be number one.
So you want to talk about thinking someone's clinically insane? That was what we were being told. But you're right. You look at it from a higher level picture, and at that time they were the cigar industry was coming off of the cigar boom of the 90s, and so because of all these other macro events, and so we thought it was a unique time or a good time to get into it because we were able to, and cigars are all about relationships and networking, and so we were able to, and that's a whole other story in itself, get in contact with our master blender, who's still with us today, manages our factory. He brought with it the 15 rollers, all with 15 years of experience. And it was because they were let go from the big cigar manufacturers at the time because the boom was coming down. So it was at a very unique time where we were able to build out these components of our business when everybody else was running from it as far as they can. And, looking back on it, I mean, I even think it was absolutely insane, but it's some of that ignorance of youth, and it's some of the ignorance of not knowing what you're doing, getting into it, and looking back, it was exactly the right time to do it for sure.
Yeah, fucking crazy. And so basically, these rollers had gotten laid off from a major factory.
Right.
The factory you guys picked up, the physical space, that had also been offloaded by one of these major companies. That master blender and
Yep.
this guy, he had been laid off. It's kind of like the brewing thing that we talked about, right? So
Right.
like, you got this master brewer who just got laid off from Goose Island or whatever,
Right.
and you want to start a new brew pub here in Minneapolis.
Right.
Go hire somebody who's already been there and done it at a high level. So some of it is luck, but you're also prepared to take advantage of that lucky opportunity.
Yeah, and
Because I don't like using the word luck.
No,
I hate luck.
And maybe it's serendipitous, but we were able to the master blender we were able to work with. It was unknown, but he's one of the most genius guys that we've ever met. And
I think he had contacts with everybody in the industry for growing the tobacco and for processing the tobacco.
Right. So he had, and this is what I attribute, the success that we've had up to this point to that is he had a rare relationship with the number one tobacco processor in the Dominican Republic. And this guy only did business with this guy and another company, which happened to be Altadis, which is the company that makes Monte Cristo, H. Upmann, Romeo Julieta. So only Altadis gets this tobacco process, which is some of the best tobacco in the world, and this guy because of his relationship, and it had to do with his family relationships and networking. And I will tell you, the easiest way to lose money is to start a cigar company without the right contacts, because you're going to end up reaching out to a guy in some Caribbean island. Everything's cash up front. You're going to pay him cash, and you're going to lose. You're absolutely sure, because you're going to get, if you get anything back, you're going to get a shitty cigar, and then you're going to be like just curling up in the fetal position and crying. So that's where the relationships are really important to establish, and having the connections, because not everybody can access the right level of tobacco that you need. And so from there, we you can call it almost vertically integrated. So we just kept buying back in the supply chain to the point where now we control the whole supply chain that makes Marco V cigars.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we started out with this relationship. We were able to access this master blender, these rollers that have a ton of experience. It was actually a dilapidated warehouse shut down that we now utilize. And then utilizing his contacts, we were able to work backwards. Now we still utilize those tobacco processors and contract in the fields, and everything's based on contracts as well. And but we control everything that happens from seed to smoke. And if you don't have that as a cigar owner, you might as well you're better off bringing it to your money to the strip club and blowing it on hookers and blow.
It sounds like a normal night for half of my friends.
Exactly. I mean,
bunch of degenerate musicians. Like they're like, I don't see what the problem is, Marco.
Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but and it's probably a better use of your money. Is what I'm saying.
And then my other half of friends are going, I feel personally attacked.
That's all. Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of complexities, and what we're not telling you. There's a lot of ups and downs with the whole thing, and there's a lot of complexities, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I find it incredibly interesting because when I get into something, I get into it. Like,
right.
My hobbies become obsessions.
Right.
And I realize it makes sense because as we get older, we realize we have less and less time. Like you think when you're young, it's interesting, man. When you're 20 and you think, oh, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to accomplish so much and time's infinite and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you're almost 40 and you turn around and you're like, I swear to God, it was like last week I was 20.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I swear to God, last week I was 20. And it's crazy because you start realizing like even in your fun, even in your hobbies, it's like, where do I want to spend my time?
Right.
So instead of doing a million things, which is what I used to do, you start really focusing in on a few things that make sense. And so for me, it comes down to things that are difficult or take skill or care, right? So even look at my fucking YouTube search history, like when I watch shit for fun, it's like woodworking, like making a poker table from scratch, because the time and effort that goes into making anything by hand, it's just astonishing. Same thing with art, right? Painting, music, comedy, beer, same deal. And it really impresses me the amount, in order to make a high quality product, it doesn't seem to matter what it is. It's almost the exact same approach and mindset for all of us, whether you're a musician or a brewer or a comedian. You really have to give a shit from the beginning to the end. And if you half-ass it anywhere in there, you will end up with a subpar product.
That's what 100% I've learned in life and in any aspect is, life has a way of kicking your ass if you don't care or if you're not passionate about what you're doing, for sure. So yeah, you hit it. In fact, to your point too, is we feel like through Marco V, we've developed a model that you could potentially apply to different industries and make it work from that standpoint. So we got a few other things that we're working on from that standpoint, but very much our focus is still trying to produce the highest quality cigars in the industry.
I want to add just something. We used to go to the big cigar manufacturers show. It wasn't open to the public. You had to be a cigar manufacturer, or you had to be a retail cigar shop owner. That's who was at these shows. And
invite only. Here, I'll take that.
And anyway, so we would go to those, and what they told us was every year at the show they had 40 newbies, so startup companies like ours, and the following year there'd be 2 of those 40s returning. So that means 38 of them went by the way
within a year.
Within a year. So, and then we'd come back, and then, you guys are here. You guys are just hanging around. Every year we would be the returning boutique new cigar.
Yeah, that's it's a really, really good point, because it's similar to what I was talking about before. It's a really hard industry to make it in, because if you think about it, and you've been to a ton of humidors, specifically in Minnesota, there's not a ton of space in a lot of these humidors.
No, and most of them suck. And that's the thing, is I've been incredibly underwhelmed by the selection, whether they take care of their cigars properly, whether they know anything about the cigars. Like I brought in one guy and I'm like, hey man, you know a lot about cigars? And he's like, yeah, what do you need? And I was like, what's the difference between these 2 cigars? And why is this one $1 more?
Did he look at you like you had 3 heads?
And he goes, I'll take $1 off if you do. And I was like, okay, fine. And it was because I figured out it was the same exact cigar, but it was one's in a tube and one isn't. I was like, why is this cigar $1 more than the one in a tube? And
packaging.
Yeah. But the one in the tube was $1 cheaper.
Yeah.
Like you'd think the tube would be the more expensive one, right?
Right.
And he's like, I'll take $1 off if that's going to make. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And I just bought one of each and smoked them side by side. They were the identical cigar.
Mhm.
They were.
Wow.
I literally lit them both up at the same time and went through. I'm like, this is the same fucking cigar.
Yeah,
And they just don't know. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And it's like, how do you even decide to order cigars at that point from your distributor? Like, this is what I want to know. Is I worked retail.
yeah.
Like, you got to really know your shit. Like, we got too many of these. We need more of these. Oh, this new thing came out. You know, like, how do you?
Right.
How do they? I don't know.
Well, and you again touched on a really good point. Is and what our findings were is the majority. And I think this is the same in a lot of industries. The majority of cigar brands report up through 4 to 5 major corporations or conglomerates. And so, you're
Say that again?
So,
Well, the big
Most
the big
cigars
cigar
are made
com-
by 4 or 5
right.
companies.
The big
in
cigar
total.
companies
Corporations.
buy up the multiple brands, and so they'll have
So
5 or
okay.
6 different brands.
So again, not to
owned
keep
by
doing
the
this.
same company.
Not to keep doing this, but again, it's very much like the beer industry. So Anheuser-Busch owns 100 other breweries,
Right.
and they keep putting them out under those names, like Goose Island or whatever the fuck.
exactly.
Okay.
So you're 100%. So like, Altadis, for example, owns Monte Cristo, HM, and Romeo and Julieta, many of the huge brands. And this is the same for the
And
other.
then those companies have 2 different sides to it. That like specifically that one, because I heard that dude, he's fucking, man, that guy's cool too, by the way. I forget his name, but they have the Cuban side, and then they have the New World side.
Yeah.
And we'll get into what that means for people later, but they literally have 2 different divisions of their company because the one is not allowed to do business in North America.
Right.
Exactly.
There is a Monte Cristo made in Cuba, and
Right.
there's a Monte Cristo made in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
Yep. Same thing with Romeo and Julieta.
Yep.
Right.
And
Well, a lot of the Cuban ones in 1960 left Cuba and
Cohiba too, right?
yep, Cohiba. Yep.
went to Dominican Republic, and they went to Nicaragua.
Right. Yeah. And so it's really complicated, but that's, and like you said, it's similar in a lot of industries where these brands report up to these giant conglomerates. And here's where it becomes complicated. And it's a lot like beer, is they control the distribution. And so what happens is in these humidors, they say, okay, you can have this brand in your humidor, but you have to have 12 facings or 15 facings, or you have to have this many facings in your particular humidor. So now space becomes really, really tight and competitive.
That's why they have an entire fucking wall of Arturo Fuentes cigars.
Exactly.
And they're all full. No one buys them.
Really true.
So think about that.
This makes so much sense now because I'm like, why do you have this many of this one brand that nobody buys?
Well, and it's not just that. They'll say, well, if you want, let's say the Opus X, which is like the most prestigious cigar that you can buy, you have to take 12 facings of this, 12 facings of this, and they go down the brand list. And so all of a sudden, that corporation is controlling the whole humidor. So think about if you're a new guy, the ignorance of a Marco V coming in and saying, hey, we want a space in your humidor. And so that was another piece of our success is when we started out with just one size, mild, medium, and full, and took out 15 inches. And so we said, put us up at the bottom or the top, in a spot where you have space, because everybody's first response is, well, I don't have space. And so we said, put us up, wherever you have, and give these cigars to your top 5 cigar smokers in your shop. And if they like them, put us up in a space that you do have. And so that's essentially how we built the Marco V brand. And then, it's social proof as well, is if you're in a humidor that a lot of people think very highly of, then that word gets around, and then they want to carry your cigars, and then that same model is repeated. So it's very challenging to try to compete with these giant distributors and brands out there too. So, but and that's the same that happens in the wine industry, in the beer industry, and the coffee industry as well. So
as we're touching on this, there's these basically 4 or 5 major conglomerates essentially.
Yep.
Even though you have all these little tiny shops, they're really all under a couple big guys, right? I think Davidoff is one of them too.
Yep, huge.
Davidoff. You just mentioned Altitas, or however the fuck you pronounce him.
Right. General Cigar. Yeah. In the interest, sorry, not interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But they all also have online catalogs. So like you think of JR Cigars or Cigars International. These are branches within these giant companies, and these are houses for either second tier or even high end brands, so that they can capture that online piece of it as well. So sure. I mean, it's really fascinating. Now, I don't want to take away. There's a tremendous amount of really good boutique cigars that are very, very successful that a lot of us like as well. And that's why I wanted to start too. Is when I started, I was a huge fan of Guillotine cigars, and he started the same way. He was he had a little folding table at one of the original IPCPRs, and it was just him and his cigars, and they were smoking. Like, wow, these are really good. And then he started building on his portfolio and kept growing like crazy too. So there's a ton of different stories like that as well. And our niche is different than a lot of those others, but there is very successful boutique brands out there too. So I don't want to take away from any of them.
Yeah, and it seems like Christoph is doing pretty well for himself.
Christoph's another one, fantastic boutique brand.
So I feel like this is just a great place to segue into the Cuban lore, right?
Yeah.
I want to get this out. I want to get this because it's so funny, dude. So when I first started back in October, when I first started getting into cigars, right, I just blitzed YouTube. Like, I wanted to do everything I could to get as much knowledge as fast as I could, because I remember wasting a lot of time and a lot of money the first time around when I was in my mid-20s. Didn't want to do that again. So I end up on this fucking YouTube thing of like common mistakes that newbie cigar smokers make, right? And the guys, I think it's Cigars Daily is the place that does it, and he's all right. He's a little annoying, but whatever. It was a good video. It was a good video because it was a lot of cliches that a lot of people do, and it genuinely annoys people to a serious degree. And one of them was, if you're smoking a cigar, don't walk up and go, "Oh, you smoking a cigar?" And they go, "Yeah," and they go, "Is it a Cuban?"
Oh man, like, you just triggered John.
So I want to get into this.
That's all we hear.
I want to get into this, right? Because this happened to me recently. Recently, I went and bought a tiny little $5 punch because I'm like, I can smoke this without feeling guilty. Run in and out of the club, light it multiple times, whatever, right? And I'm standing out there puffing on my cigar. And are you just standing out here smoking a cigar? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's fucking awesome. This guy's fucking cool. And I'm like, oh my God. And then the next guy immediately goes, so what kind of cigar is that? And before I could even open my mouth, he goes, is it a Cuban? And I was just like, this fucking...
Did you come unglued?
No, dude. But I suddenly understood the video I was just referencing. Like, and we've talked about this, another one, where guys ash it too much. They fucking smash it down, right? They have the phrase, let it die with dignity. When it's done, you just set it down, walk away.
Right.
There's so many of these weird little things, but, fuck, what was my original point? Oh, yeah, the Cuban thing.
Right.
So this is what I was getting at is, I'm reading and looking up shit online, finding out the original reason Cubans were great cigars.
Yep.
And correct me where I'm wrong on this, was because it was the combination of all the factors, right? It was where the fields are located in proximity to the ocean. So they were close enough to the ocean where they were getting a little bit of salt off the ocean, but not enough salt to where it ruined the soil.
Right.
The longitude, latitude, that's all. Then the skill of the guys who just had years and years of experience of knowing the right proportions and the right blends of everything to do, combined with the quality of the seed and just everything. Whereas when they moved to Nicaragua, because of the band, and Dominican Republic and Honduras, they'd take the Cuban seed, but it didn't grow properly in Honduras or DR or wherever, right? And it's taken, from my understanding, since the 60s when that happened, till pretty much in the last 10 years for American cigars or New World cigars to become as good, if not better. And now there's a whole thing happening on like cigar Twitter. I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, but if you're part of the cigar world of Twitter, there's a huge argument going down right now, and including on Reddit, that New World cigars are actually better than Cubans now. And it's you could probably
most of
explain
those
this better than I could. But
cigar aficionado rating systems the Cubans don't beat the Dominicans, they don't beat the Nicaraguans. In fact, the only place you can't buy Cubans is our country here, and we're in the rest of the world. They can buy Cubans, and they don't. I mean, it's like third or fourth down the line, number one selling cigar in the world is from Dominican Republic. Number two is Nicaragua.
Yeah, and that's not to say, I mean, there's some fantastic cigars that are rated very high that come from Cuba.
But isn't it something weird, like 85% of cigars sold are sold in America? Like some crazy ratio like that.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big portion. But I mean the whole cigar thing with the Cubans is I think in the U.S. it has to do with just not being able to get it in full quantities here. Right now you can buy certain boxes or import at least a box, but it's certainly hard.
You can go there and bring back whatever you want now.
Right,
but you can't order it and have it shipped here, something like
exactly.
that. Exactly. Right. So you can go to like. But and still, even so, I feel like I'm doing a terrible job of setting this up, but almost all of the tobacco in Cuba is government controlled.
Exactly right.
And it's by one company called Habanos.
Yeah. So talk to them a little bit about that. I mean,
because Cohiba, the Cuban Cohibas are still very highly sought after, and I think that's kind of it, right?
Well, and the other huge factor that plays into the cigar industry is counterfeits. Now, there are some fantastic cigars that come from Cuba. There's no better soil combination in the world than Cuba. Nicaragua is very similar to it. That's why you see Nicaraguan cigars score very high as well.
Well, they're right next to each other.
Exactly. But in fact, we see and hear this. There's factories in the Dominican Republic that will sell huge quantities of Dominican cigars with the counterfeit Cohiba label into Turkey, and they're selling them as Cuban cigars. So they're capitalizing on that.
That's so weird. That's so fucking weird because
it's black market is what it is.
It's so weird though because counterfeit is really only a thing here. Like I'm reading this Reddit thread, because that's where, dude, that's where you really want to get into the fucking guys.
Oh, you get some rabbit holes, yeah.
Oh
for
my
sure.
god, the guys. I mean, literally, there's an entire subreddit dedicated to when you buy Cohibas, you take a picture of it and you put it on this thing, and these guys will tell you if it's real or not. Like they're that fucking good, and they'll look at it's like watching guys do old fucking guitars. Like, oh no, they didn't use these tuners in 1964, so this is not the original guitar. Like shit like that. It's like fuck, I would have never noticed. How do you remember all this stuff? That's shit I'm talking about, right? And like one of the things that they were saying is if you bought these in America, yes. Post it here, but if you bought these in like Greece at the airport or in Europe or England or whatever, there's not really a market for black market cigars over there. But you're saying that there is.
Yeah, I mean, and they're marketing them as that. The hard part is Cuba is essentially obviously a communist country.
Fucking commies.
And so what's making the, as you call them, the
so
new age
Minnesota,
cigars,
by the way,
exactly, yeah, is they need to make money, so they're rushing cigars through in Cuba. And this is not all of them. I'm not generalizing across, but they're trying. That's a huge cash crop for them. So they're turning those cigars over faster than maybe the aging should be appropriate for. And so it's a really challenging thing to get a really high quality cigar out of Cuba. Whereas in these New World areas, they're very dedicated to the aging and curing process of the tobacco, and that's, I think, why you're seeing some of that.
Which is funny because these are capitalistic countries, capitalistic economies that are all about profit and don't care about people, but they're doing a significantly better job of controlling their crop and quality control. Like, I thought communism was supposed to be this beautiful dream where, you see what I'm saying? Like, the logic doesn't track there. Like, every time we see like one of these communist countries take over anything, the quality of everything goes to shit. And you leave it up to the private companies in a capitalistic economy, and suddenly they're more patient. Like, you see what I'm getting at? Like, it's a weird. It makes perfect sense, but it's weird. It's not what the bill of goods we're being sold currently on the two takes of capitalism versus communism.
Right. And when we started in the cigar industry, we focused strictly on the Dominican Republic, which and it's not the touristy areas of Puerto Plata or Punta Cana. This is Santiago, which is, as the crow flies, about 5 kilometers south of Puerto Plata on the north end of the island. And it's a valley that creates, very good soil conditions similar to what you were talking about in Cuba. And because that was another reason why we wanted to find a place in an area where we can control that entire supply chain, so you can get around that, because the curing and the aging and how you make the cigar is just incredibly important, and we couldn't trust taking someone's word for it, because there's so many shortcuts you can take that'll result in a really, really bad cigar.
Sure.
And so, being vertically integrated is very important. I mean, it's easy to, sweep up some of the cigar ashes or the cigar scraps on the floor and put it into a wrapper and sell it. But that's not something we're going to put our Marco V label on. So,
right.
What we wanted to do is create a supply chain that we can trust, and that we know where it started, and then where we're going to distribute it, and everything that happens in between it. Now, since being in the Dominican Republic, we've also branched to Nicaragua, which is still a communist country, but there's capitalistic components with it. And so
I just read this morning about Nicaragua. Daniel Ortega, the prime minister, president of Nicaragua. Yeah. And he's closing 6 different universities there. He doesn't want them.
The purge of intellectuals.
And it's just, I think it all comes down to private ownership. The guy who used to own the factory that produced Monte Cristo and H. Upmann Gloria Cubana in Cuba is now living in Nicaragua or Dominican Republic, and it's private ownership. He's gonna have much more invested in it than when the government owns the factory in Cuba.
Interesting. So I think this is a good point to talk about those shortcuts that Marco was just referring to. So you guys control the process from seed to roll, or to packaging.
Seed to smoke.
Seed to smoke. Sorry, yeah. Seed to smoke. And we talked about this. I found this fascinating. So explain to me the aging process of the tobacco. So after it's grown, but before it's rolled, there's this elaborate aging process.
Correct.
Explain to the listeners, because I found this fascinating. So we pluck the plant, however you want to refer to it, harvest the plant.
First of all, I was quite impressed with, these are all hand planted. They start in a little, like a Dixie cup with soil. They put a seed in there and they get it so high, and they go out and plant it by hand in the fields. There's no automation, nothing like we have for farming in our country.
Peanut, quiet.
Peanut.
Peanut, quiet. I don't know how she keeps sneaking down here.
If you took a green leaf from a tobacco plant and you wanted to put that in a cigar, there's no flavor. No flavor whatsoever.
And
I got another one here.
Yeah.
I'll take one more too.
You got a palladium in there? Or did you give me all of them?
All I brought is Itch X.
All right.
Or do you want to palladium?
I think I'm gonna smoke a palladium.
Go ahead.
Palladium, yeah.
Go ahead.
You guys like my temporary humidor?
I love that. That's brilliant.
This is like the smartest way to go.
Yeah.
Like if you can't afford like a really nice humidor, take your ass to Walmart or Target and buy a glorified Tupperware and then go get one of these Bovida packs and slap that bitch in there. You don't season these because it's plastic.
Yeah.
You're good to go out of the gate, man.
It's really smart.
And that's all you need. You just want to control the temperature and the humidity.
It doesn't look cool.
Cigar.
I mean, it does kind of look cool to see the cigars. It's kind of cool, but no, I mean, I'm gonna get myself. I got coming tomorrow. I told you.
What is
guys.
that designed for?
I have no idea. Cereal, flour, fuck if I know. But I got a real humidor coming tomorrow.
Nice. Well, anyways, so if you had the green leaf, you can't make a cigar out of that green leaf because there's no flavor in it, and you wouldn't be able to light it. For another thing, because it's not ready to burn.
Right.
So what they have to do is after they pick the leaves, they string them together, 2 bunches, and they put them on bamboo rods that are in a barn, but it's not the barn like we see pole barns here with made out of metal and everything. These are just thatch roof, very good ventilation, but they say probably 1 to 2 months hanging in the drying barn. It's just an incredible scene to see all these bunches of tobacco that's aging for 1 to 2 months when it goes from a bright green to a darker brown. Okay. And that's step 1 in the aging process. And then after that, it's after a couple months in the drying barn, then they're ready to sort the leaves and pick the long ones, the short ones, and the fat ones. And anyways, then they have to cure it an additional amount of time. It's still not ready. But what is the characteristic that's you mentioned ammonia?
Yeah, you're trying to get the ammonia out, and but it's a really complex process. They sort the particular leaves of which part goes into which particular cigar or which part of the cigar.
Filler binder wrapper.
Yeah. But they store them in these giant bales, and tell them about that.
Okay, so after hanging in the barn and getting them nice and brown, now they still aren't ready for optimal flavor, the leaves. And so it might be a year, 2, 3, 4. There's some that are 5 years that are processed in these huge bales. The bales are like 4 feet by 4 feet high by 4 feet, 4 by 4, a cube of tobacco leaves. And if you just had those sitting in a processing plant, they would rot. They would get compost pile. So what they do is like every month, they have people take the inside leaves and put them on the outside, and take the outside leaves and put them on the inside. It's unbelievable the amount of labor that goes into sorting these and letting them age, and that goes on for 2 or 3 years.
At a minimum 2-3 years, sometimes 4 or 5 years.
Right.
That's incredible. So you guys have to, business-wise, you're looking. Okay, it's 2022. It's February of 2022.
Right.
So this, whatever,
these bales
we're looking at, or this blend, these bales of this blend or this cigar we want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you're looking at, if, like, for example, if you want to start a brand new cigar, you want to add a new one to the line.
Right.
Is that a 5-year outlook then? Or do you just take stuff that's already been around for 5 years and reappropriate the...
Marco and I have done this a number of times where we contact our master blender down there and say, look, we want to come out with a Toro, or we want to come out with a Figurado. And then we tell them what flavor profiles we're looking for, just from our own personal preference. And our guy down there puts together 5 or 6 different blends to see, and he makes them in the shape we want them. He puts different blends, and then it's all on a big board that Marco and I will go independently and smoke. Maybe.
So do you have to go down there to do this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the natural. I mean, it's part of the process of blending, and that's how it started. And then we'll also do things as well. We'll do what do you call it? We call it like the lab, where we'll put together different blends and give it to some of our best customers, and they'll tell us which ones they like. So it's a big process as far as blending. But what I think what your question was when you're planning this, and this is what makes us a little bit different from some of the big brands is, if we find a blend that we like, let's say the Platinum Grand Reserve, we are able to buy those components, and contract them into a space where we're able to have that same tobacco blend for a year, and so or even longer. And so that speaks to the consistency of the flavor of our cigars that happen. Whereas in some of the big brands, you may have different leaves from different fields, different regions in that same blend that can impact the flavor of that particular cigar within the same box. And so then so it's just being a little bit smaller, and then being able to contract to get the right tobaccos that you like for an extended period of time is really important.
So they sit here for years,
right?
And this is where they're fermenting,
more or less.
Yeah, sitting on these pallets, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And they're spaced out so they get some airflow.
Right.
Yep.
But they do heat up like compost, and that's why you got to flip them, right?
Right. They have like a 6-foot long probe, the temperature gauge on the end. I'll stick that into the bale, and if it's hot, then we got to flip this one inside out, keep it from cooking.
Right. It's a really fascinating thing. I mean, there's different steps throughout the curing and fermenting process, and that's what makes good tobacco. And so you want to make sure that the tobacco that you're using is perfectly fermented and cured throughout this whole particular process. So does the
fermentation, is that a natural thing that happens while these processes are being done, or is there a chemical added that creates
chemicals
this?
Added, no flavoring, anything like that. It's just it just gets to the optimal point.
So it'll just naturally ferment,
right?
Huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so
and it's no formula for how many years it takes, or
yeah, you were telling me that too. You were saying that your guy will be like, oh no, this one's got to sit for another year.
He'll take a leaf off the
bale,
bale, and he will use a little Bic lighter and just hold it underneath the leaf, burning it a little bit. And he's going like this. He's just saying, oh, this one's got probably another year to go before it has maximum flavor.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's so wild, dude.
It's so the factory is where the cigars are rolled, right? And there's a whole nother facility and giant complex where the tobacco is aged, cured, and fermented, and it's a really fascinating process to watch. But it's an incredibly important one too, and you can't overlook that. So that's where the tobacco processing, is what they call it, is one of the most important parts of the cigar industry, and that's where Cubans, they may rush through some of them, but there's others where they do take their time and produce really nice cigars too. So it's so
the final step is the rolling. The guys do everything by hand. There's no machines involved at all. They're sitting there rolling them, and even then, it still has to come together. So after they roll it, we put them in bundles of 100.
Oh, stay up on the mic.
And put them on a shelf for another month. What's coming together, and then they cut them and put cellophane on them, and they're ready to go.
That's super interesting, dude.
Yeah, and
do you think all cigars get better with age? I was listening to the Davidoff guys talk about that, and
well, my experience is that we've had cigars in our humidor that, for some reason, I've had there for 3-4 years, and I go, well, let's see how it compares to one that we just had shipped in, and they're better.
The new ones are better, or the
old
aged
ones are better.
And
that's because of aging.
Yes.
And that, yeah, but I think a really important piece is you need to maintain the temperature and humidity of where your tobacco is stored. Now, in some cases, there may be some more time for where that piece of tobacco needs to be aged or particular cured. But I think it's where the tobacco is processed, and that process of what it goes through is where the majority of it. And it's a lot like wine, is you can have a good crop, a good year where all those flavors are really come through, and there's others where there's more rain or more wind.
Right.
It's an agricultural product is what it is, and there's variables, and it's not always absolutely identical. I mean,
right. And you're going to have, different imperfections in every particular leaf. So these are not machine-made cigars.
And we were talking about that too. Most cigars are hand-rolled. Like, you can get machine-rolled cigars, but they're very few and far between.
Right.
Because I get that a lot too about the Cuban thing. Like, oh, well, Cubans are special because they're hand-rolled. All fucking cigars are. And my mom actually says this every time it gets brought up. She goes, well, Cubans are hand-rolled. And I'm like, they're all fucking hand-rolled, Mom. Stop bringing that up. Like, literally, they're all hand-rolled.
It's a different product too. I mean, there are machine-rolled cigars. I mean, your Swish.
They usually use.
It's crazy though that these are hand-rolled.
But think about that.
These are so perfect. Like, especially this Palladium. I noticed.
Look at the burn you got on that.
Yeah, this is probably why. Not only just the taste, but there's also something and tell me if I'm alone on this, but it's how does the cigar feel in your hand?
Exactly.
Right? Like, there's something to it, the texture of the leaf, how it feels in my fingertips, but also the weight of the cigar.
And whether or not it's soft.
Yeah,
exactly. That's a huge thing.
Right? Sometimes they're too hard. Right. Sometimes they're too soft. Like, there's so many weird little things that I already look for in a cigar. And I think that's why I love this Palladium that much, is because, like you just mentioned, it's such a perfectly even burn.
Right.
Like, I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that as far as like the evenness of that. It holds an ash really well, so I can get a good 3/4 to an inch.
It brings to mind something that a lot of the big, huge conglomerate cigar companies, they have draw testers, which is a vacuum thing that tests how the cigar is going to draw. They put it on this machine, but they might do 1 in 300 cigars. They're testing 1 in 300, whereas we're doing every cigar at the Marco V factories.
Every single cigar. By the way,
can I thank you guys for not putting a fucking pigtail on these goddamn things? I thought that was the coolest shit when I first got back into cigars, and now it's annoying as fuck. To get the pigtail off, to cut it, or to punch around it, and still get a clean... Like, every Christoph cigar I smoke gets ruined because that fucking pigtail. Well, so and you can draw.
That's an interesting point, because on our Lanceros, which is, remember the 38 ring gauge,
the Seville, right?
Yeah, the Seville or the La Canela.
Those all cigars, almost all cigars, have caps on them. They put a little thing to keep the tobacco from falling out, and with the Lanceros, they're so thin that we can't put a cap on them.
Oh, that makes sense.
So they do a little pigtail.
They do a little tight pigtail.
This looks like it has a triple cap on it.
Yeah,
it does.
That's one of the biggest signs of a truly high-end cigar. Is the cheapest ones have just for the listeners that don't know, I'm not trying to teach you guys shit. You guys know everything. But the cheapest cigars will have just a single cap on it. Mm-hmm. Most cigars have a double cap, but truly high-end premium cigars have a triple cap, and that protects the integrity of this, so you don't suddenly start literally chewing on tobacco while you're smoking the cigar.
I notice you use a punch.
I'm a big punch guy now.
That's a great point, because it keeps the integrity of the cigar together.
And that is why I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I just got to get a bigger one for your 60 gaugers. Because this one, honestly, on a Toro, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But as soon as I get into like a Giganta or a double Churchill or whatever the fuck people want to call it, anything basically above 55, and this hole is just a little too small. I got to get that slightly bigger punch.
Yeah, in with cigar smoking, what you'll find is everything's kind of a matter of preference too. So there's guys that swear by in exactly the process you walk through. You know, on a 60 ring gauge, I like to have a punch, or I mean a cut, and on a Toro, I like to have a punch, and so
A V cut.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to next. Is like, so where are you guys on it? You guys are clearly cutting.
Well, we have a little gizmo that you can cut cigars, and it'll give you your choice of
like 6 different choices there.
all the different.
What do you
cuts.
prefer?
Well, for me personally, and it's different for everybody, I like a straight cut on a 60 ring gauge because I get a lot of smoke from that. Sometimes, in fact, even on a 60 ring gauge, I'll punch it if I don't want as much smoke coming through that particular cigar, to see if that changes the component from it. And then other times I'll do a V cut. So there's really not a good answer. It's really a preference for what you want to experience as far as how much smoke you. And for me, it comes into so like some of the stronger cigars, I'll V cut it or punch it just so I can enjoy the smoke and some of that strength. And on the lighter cigars, I might just straight cut it on that. I don't know. What do you usually do?
I'm always a straight cut.
I think
It's
the
quicker, boom.
I think the V is my least favorite because it cuts through the sidewall of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And so you completely, like even on a regular straight cut, I can just cut above the shoulder, preserve the integrity of the head of the cigar.
Right.
But with that V cut, you're coming right through the side of it. And I've never been able to smoke a V cut cigar to completion without it literally starting to unravel. And I find myself like peeling it back, and like rewrapping it again and like tamping it down to keep it together.
No,
and it sucks on like a $12 cigar. It's like, fuck, man.
Well, that's another point is the guillotine cut. Not do you know how you're only supposed to take off 1/8 of an inch?
Yeah, and I also heard
the
most of
guillotine
these
cuts
are perfectly designed for you to set this in here.
Right. Yeah.
Do you guys know
perfect
that?
cut. Yeah.
Yeah, like you just leave it on the table, boom, snip it, and you'll look at it and it's perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, one of our favorite cutters of all time has a back on it, so you don't have to use a table, and you're just essentially cutting off the amount you want.
It gives you the 1/8 inch. That
And you guys are using a double guillotine.
Right.
Some of the high class dudes, like the Davidoff boys,
we'll only use a
single.
Right.
What's the deal there?
The single one pushes tobacco into the other end where it's cutting into it, and it fills up. And who can take a cutter apart and take out the tobacco?
Right.
It's a pain in them.
Yeah, and again,
But what's the benefit? Why would they why do they prefer a single bladed guillotine?
I think
it's preference with everything, and it could have to do with how sharp that particular blade is. I mean, there's different elements that go in.
So like maybe this is like a cheaper stainless.
So
there's self-sharpening ones where they actually work together. That's the beveled edges on opposite sides, so it's a nice, clean, smooth cut.
The one thing I did notice is you guys, most guys have like a real cutter like this, like an 80 gauge. You can cut anything you want with this bad boy. Mine is that cheap basic bitch one I got for free back in the day from JR Cigars or whatever. So I can't cut any 60 gauge cigars. Like it's just not an option.
Well, I mean, part of the reason too is we carry this stuff around too is because you're smoking with other guys and it ends up in someone else's pocket, but. So having you got your nice stuff at home or when you're smoking around it, but when we're traveling with stuff or whatever, it'll get the particular job done. But I do want to make a point is if you look at all 3 of our cigars, right, you see really nice burns. You probably have the same if the feel to all the particular cigars. We had a guy once tell us, we try to squeeze it, and if it's really soft, we know that's a Cuban. That's a complete myth. There's tons of myths.
That's not a thing.
and when we work all these events, you hear these horrible myths that people are talking about. But the Marco V components that we put our label on is this firm feel to the particular cigar.
We know the draw is going to be perfect.
Right. The draw should be all the same on all the cigars, and the ash should be. You should be able to, like you said, get about an inch or more of the ash from it. And so, we put a lot of pride into the construction of our cigars. But that's only one component of it. The blending and the flavor and making sure that the tobacco is processed right is the second piece of it.
And there is, when you do events with this,
I got to piss. I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
I'm going to be right here. I'm going to piss in the sink over here, so I'll still be able to hear you.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, so talk about some of the events that we do and some of the things you hear.
Well, yeah, they say, well, the cigar I'm smoking and they're smoking has a perfect draw, in my opinion.
Right.
And they say, oh, I don't like these because they're so hard to suck the smoke. And it's like, I said, well, maybe you got to get used to it. I mean, it's just.
Well, I mean, you don't want a cigar where the smoke that's coming through it is too much, and you don't want it to where you're really trying to work at it. You really want it to be, effortless, and then to where it burns appropriately. And I think that's how we build the particular cigars. But
there are some cigars that draw real easy, and if you're maybe it's a cheaper cigar,
right. And that has to do with how they're rolled. But talk about some of the other myths that you hear at some of the cigar events we work.
We always hear about, were these rolled on the thighs of virgins? I mean, I always hear that.
Yeah, or what's the other one? The wood tips.
You got any cherry flavored ones in your mix?
Yeah. And what's your response to that?
Nope. Ours don't have any cherry flavoring.
Yeah. We talked about this when we were at Anthony's. The cognac infused ones. You guys tried that?
Yep. Yeah, and we found out, there's that's not what our that's not what our brand is about. Our brand is about the natural flavor of cigars, enhancing the flavor of a cigar by combining different parts of the cigar to make it even better. So the blending is really what our core competency is, not infusing it with flavors. And I mean, you see other brands that do that really well. I mean,
and like we mentioned before, there's Honduran, and there's Nicaraguan, and there's Dominican, and there's Ecuadorian. All those places have really good tobacco leaves, but they taste differently. So when
you can
you're
take
blending,
the same seed in each of those places, and that's because of the soil and shit, right?
Exactly.
Rainfall, temperatures. The humidity is pretty consistent in that area, though. It is getting warm and then cold.
Ideally, in our humidor, in most people's humidor, you want to have 70 degrees in the ambient temperature, and you want to have 70% humidity. But
that's our general rule is 70-70.
70-70. But
guys get really
down
specific
there,
about that shit too. Oh, yeah, I'm a 68-72 guy.
Yeah,
right.
Okay,
plus or minus 5%. But
yeah, the general rule of thumb is
but down there, it's very common to be 70 degrees temperature and 78% humidity, and so
because they do have humidors down there, but it's just to prevent against the bugs, right? Which we haven't really even talked about, the tobacco beetles. I want to get to that in a minute, but they don't do humidity control down there, right?
No, it's all natural. That's part of the beauty of down there is they have perfect temperature and humidity. Curing tobacco.
They open or close the doors depending on what it is, but the temperature and humidity is a big piece. If your humidity is too high, you run the risk of problems, and if your heat is too high, you run the risk of problems too. So we really do. I mean, it is a really important aspect of it.
If you get too warm, too humid, you're going to get mold,
right? Yeah,
lots of mold.
Yeah, I see that. That's what we were talking about earlier at the humidors. Like I was saying, around town, especially, a lot of these guys do not know how to take care of their cigars. I went into one and legitimately started seeing mold spots.
Yeah,
inside the cellophane wrappers.
Oh,
you don't want to buy that cigar.
No, I didn't.
Did you tell them? Or?
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, we know. I'm like, are you going to do anything about this?
No.
Oh, we're
working on it.
We're working on it. Well, see, we're actually going to rebuild it, so we're not like going to fix it the way it is right now. And I'm like, so you're just going to waste thousands of dollars worth of cigars? No, we'll still sell them. I'm like, bro. That's not how any of this works, man.
Yeah, I've been
In fact, a big part of what you do on a regular basis is he's going into the shops. He's gauging how they take care of their humidors.
It smells good in here. I tell him, if you can smell when it's moldy, mildewy.
Yep.
And I say, it smells good. And looks like the temperature's about right and the humidity's about right. And the other thing is, in a big walk-in humidor, you have to have some sort of air circulation too, because it's going to be different in that corner than it is down in that corner.
Sure.
And so you want to have some sort of Casablanca fan or just a fan just circulating the air so it's consistent throughout the humidor. If your cigar is right on top of their big humidification system, it's probably going to get moldy and mildewy and foggy and
Right. And so that's where, like you mentioned, you got to be really careful about where you buy your cigars. There's some guys, and a lot of them, the ones with lounges, have really nice humidors, and they have tobacco experts working at their shops,
and they might spend $30,000-$40,000 on their humidification system. It's filtered water and filtered everything.
So yeah, I mean it's a really sensitive product where. And then the other end of it is we hear at the events that we work. Oh yeah, I smoke one cigar a year, and it was the cigar that was in my dad's tackle box, and
from summer to summer,
right? And
I have it in my glove compartment for the last 6 months,
right. And so when it's really dried out like that, it impacts the way it'll smoke, obviously. But it also, when it dries out like that, it takes a lot of the flavor out of the cigar. And so it almost renders it, you might as well not even waste your time smoking.
Well, people always say, can I revive this? If I put it in some 90% humidity, won't it come back? It doesn't come back.
Really? Because I heard you can't. I heard as long as the cigar is intact, it could take months though. Yeah. But you got to put it in your humidor and you got to bring it back to life. But you're saying it's not. It may be smokable, but it's never going to taste the same.
Exactly right. Okay. The oils or something in the leaf dissipate. And you don't get a good smoke.
Another one of your pet peeves is the licking.
Oh.
I've been guilty of this.
Well, it's a preference.
They're used to Grandpa's one that's been in his tackle box, and so they want to bring it back by slurping all over it. And
it's usually done to prevent the cigar from unraveling. But most premium cigars, should be built in a way where they won't come unraveled.
They don't use glue,
right?
And when they're rolling them, so all of these perfect cigars, like you're smoking that one, you don't want to change the humidification on it by licking on it.
Yeah, and one thing I was reading up and finding out is that they're intentionally the filler is. I'm probably going to say this backwards because I always do this. When you give me two options, I'll flip them around just because I'm an idiot like that. The filler is intentionally more moist than the wrapper, and the wrapper is intentionally drier than the binder. And when you're smoking it, as the heat comes through, it dries out the inside, which causes it to expand, and the opposite happens on the outside. So the outside wrapper begins to constrict as you're smoking it. If you fuck up, and I think this is what you're getting at, is if you slob all over it and you fuck up that moisture balance, it is going to create an uneven burn.
Of course.
Because you're messing with the moisture content of the wrapper throughout the
other thing that affects the burn, like you just mentioned, is somebody who puffs way too much, too fast, too hard, and that creates an uneven amount of burn. It'll burn, in that case, it'll burn right up the middle.
Yep, I was just going to, Yep. I just experienced that probably a week or two ago. I don't think it was on one of your cigars. It could have been, though. But I noticed, I was like, I'm smoking this way too fast. And I noticed it because I let it go out. And when I went to go relight it, I cut the end off.
Right.
And I came down. This sucks for the listeners. If you guys are listening back to this, you definitely want to come watch this on YouTube because this is going to be better on camera. But basically, I would cut it maybe about that far, quarter inch, maybe a half inch below my burn, and the center was still blackened.
Yeah.
And so I knew at that moment, I was like, I was hotboxing. I must have had it in my mouth while I was doing something. So I was just, you know what I mean? Instead of like pulling it out and hanging on to it.
But I will, to that point, I will say, I mean, and I think all three of us have it, and for the listeners that can't see it, what you want to see from when your cigar is burning, you almost want to see this cone shape taking place. And I think on each of them, you can see there's a little cone that's coming out of
almost
it.
like a little nipple.
Right. And that speaks to, and so if it's inverted, there's either something structurally wrong with the cigar or
smoking too fast.
Smoking too fast or something. But on the majority of the Marco V's, you should be able to see that cone.
Another pet peeve, guys who do this.
Oh yeah.
You want to have a 3/4 inch ash.
Yep,
is ideal.
Yeah, and I was again. I'll take the ball on this one. I was reading about this. The reason for this is the ash will actually act as an insulator and prevent the cherry from getting too hot and overburning. Because if you overheat the tobacco, it'll actually mess with the oils and crystallize a peanut. How are you even down here? My greedy ass attention whore dog. It'll crystallize them and it'll turn the cigar bitter. And once you char it and once you get it that crystallized bitter flavor, it'll chase it all the way through. You'll never get past it. You can't unsmoke that. You can't slow down and fix the cigar. The only thing you could do is maybe let it go out, cut it off, like way below. But then you're basically starting the cigar over from scratch, because a lot of the thing that makes it beautiful is as you're smoking that front end, all that nicotine goes through and changes the flavor profile in the middle of the cigar as well.
Some guys like that when you get down to that long, they like that heavy.
Yeah,
that's my favorite
body.
part. Yeah, my favorite part is that last couple inches.
It's just a good cigar.
True. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's where one of the cigars we created is called the Fabuloso. It's one of our Dominican cigars. It comes in a mild bodied format with a Connecticut shade grown wrapper and a Maduro, and it's what you would call a figurado, but we call it the Fabuloso shape, and it's got a tapered head, a nipple foot, and then it bulges out, and the gauge undulates throughout the cigar to create complexity. And so
that's what that is for.
Exactly.
It's not just because some guy wanted to look cool with a unique shape.
No, it's intended to create complexity through the cigar. And this is awesome. I love it. Looks like she is it he or she?
She.
Yeah, likes the cigar smoke.
No, I'm not jealous, Peanut. You can stop looking at me anytime now.
But the flavor profile comes from. The majority of your flavor comes from the wrapper. We've talked about this. And the majority of your body comes from the filler. And so as you're smoking that cigar, as you can see, the ratio of that cigar, the filler to the...
It starts out at a 52 and goes down to a 48.
Right. So when you light it on that nipple, it's just the wrapper. And then it expands to where you're smoking mostly filler and then comes back to more of the wrapper. Because that wrapper binder filler ratio is changing throughout that cigar, and so that's intended to create complexity through that size.
That's crazy. I just literally thought it was some fucking douchebag Italian dude who fucking wanted his own vibe. He's like, like the classic cliche Italian guy. Oh, fucking.
So
I want my own shape.
The little side story. We determined that we wanted to have.
And yes, I'm making fun of Italian people because I make fun of everybody on this channel.
One of the cigar shapes we said we should add to our portfolio is what the book says is a Cuban perfecto shape.
Right.
And so we went down there and we were going to roll out and introduce our Cuban perfecto, and we said, because our rollers are all native Dominican, and I said, what do you guys call it? Do you call that shape a Cuban perfecto? No. I said, what do you call it? We call it the Fabuloso.
The Fabuloso.
And I said, oh man, that's a great name. Yeah. So we call our cigar that shape a Fabuloso.
Right. Yeah. What is with the different names?
Yeah.
Is it regional? Like, so for example, I've seen them called and I'm talking about gauges combined with lengths, right? It seems to me a Gordo, a Gigante, and a double Churchill are all the same cigar, as far as size and proportions. That's wrong?
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
Because they all seem like they're 60 gauges. And they all seem like they're 6 inches or longer.
Well, it's a 58, in the Churchills, it has to do with the length primarily. But
until it's a double Churchill. Because a double Churchill is thicker than a regular Churchill.
Right, that's a 58, and a regular Churchill is like a 52.
Yeah, it's basically a Toro.
54, yeah, something like it. Yeah, and then there's different trains of thoughts, and that was one of the things that when we started, there was a 60 by 6 is the traditional Gigante, or the Gordo as you'd call it, and so we said we're going to take an inch off that, and we call it the V Gigante, the Marco V Gigante. That's the 60 by 5.
That's his marketing genius.
No.
What he said is, there's no 60 by 5 on the market, so why don't we make
got
one
the
of
time
those?
and so now there's obviously more of those, but so
it's a 65.
a 60 ring gauge by 5. 5 inches.
Gotcha.
Where a traditional Gigante is 60 ring gauge by 6. Yeah. So I mean, but the sizes. I mean, you could read 10 different things, and there's different sizes. It has to do with region, Dominican, like you were talking about, or Nicaraguan or Cuban. The sizes are all changed, and there's usually
a little difference.
In
maybe it's a Churchill's a 7 1/8.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
Right.
But there's a lot of unique ways. I mean, one of the guys that there's a football cigar. He creates it in a football or a baseball bat. Or there's a guy who creates a cigar into a pipe, a pipe shape. There's a bunch of different ways they can roll cigars.
Sure.
What's up with the Mac Daddy you guys got?
Yeah, the King.
The fuck, it's like literally a foot long.
66 by 10.
Oh, you got to tell
10
him
inches.
You got to tell him the story about the IPCPR.
We're going to the
You guys, it's definitely a foot because I know what 10 inches looks like.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we're going to the IPCPR show, and we're kind of newbies. This is early on.
The IC what?
IPCPR. It's International Pipe and
Cigar Retailer Convention. Now it's what the PCA. I mean they've changed.
It's
the
a
name
PCA.
The Pipe and Cigar Association.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyways,
so it's primarily for retailers. So the brands all come in, and then the retailers come and.
But we were just getting going, and we wanted something that would turn heads and get people to stop at our booth and buy our cigars. So we said to our master blender, I said, "Can you come up with a big, huge cigar?" And he says, "Oh, I'll make you anything you want." So we made a 66 by 10, and we called it the King. Yeah. The King is what we nicknamed it. But
have you had one?
No.
Oh yeah.
I gotta guess. Oh, anyways, so we
do
made
2 flavors, right?
Yeah,
you do a Maduro and you do a Connecticut.
Exactly. Yep.
But we said let's try it. So we made 1,000 of them, and we brought them to the show, and everybody flipped out. They were come here, come on, guys, look at this thing, look how big this thing is. So anyways, we sold out in an instant of the 1,000, and then we started making it on a regular basis, and it sells really well.
You would not believe
people love that damn thing.
There's
I've thought about grabbing one. I've thought about grabbing one when I know I've got a long night of podcasting.
Well, 4 hours. 4 hours.
For real. No,
4 hours.
No joke. No bullshit. Because there's, again, like we've already smoked 2 cigars.
Right.
We're on our second one. I'm like, okay, I can smoke 2 of these at $7, or I could just go grab this one at, what is it, 12 or something like that.
Use your 80 green gauge cutter and cut it in half. You got 2 cigars.
I got 2 cigars.
but you would not believe there are guys that's their preference of cigar to smoke.
I mean, are they giant humans? Like, is that what The Rock and Arnold want to smoke? You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
I mean, fuck, have you seen The Rock? When he drinks tequila, he just slams it out of the bottle. I watched The Rock on Instagram drink an entire bottle of tequila like he was chugging a beer.
Oh, my God.
And then he was like, okay, now let's go to work. It's like that guy's metabolism, the size of these people has to be so through the roof that you can do that. Well, I take 2 shots of tequila and I'm like, all right, we're not getting anything done for the rest of the day. This man just slammed a whole bottle. Like, is that your market for the King, or is it people like my size that just want to be
I don't know
crazy?
What it is. It's not just a gimmick cigar. It's a really high quality, rolled by the same rollers who roll all our cigars. They just make a giant cigar. You have to have bigger leaves.
I do have to try one.
Yeah.
I do have to try one. the place I love to go, probably my favorite place. There's two now.
Yep.
Well, actually, no. There's three. So there's Central Tobacco.
Okay.
That's up in Blaine.
Yep.
That's what I was just telling you guys about that.
And that's
place.
where you found the Palladiums.
Yep. It's like the only place I found them in stock. And they carry a few of yours. So they have the Black Sapphire.
Oh, they got some of the new Privados. Yeah, good.
This place, I always forget, Sarna's or Sarah's or something like that.
Sarah's.
Right on the corner of University across from Stanley's. That's one of my favorite places. Yeah. That's my regular go-to spot.
That's a good store.
Mo's amazing up there.
You know Mo well.
And then...
well, half the guys I know are Mo.
Yeah,
I know, right? Because they're all Mohammed. And then the third place is actually right behind the quarry in Northeast Minneapolis, next to... forget what it's called, but it's literally... it's in... so you have the Quarry Shopping Center, and then there's that weird strip mall directly behind it. And there's a liquor store and a tobacco shop right next to each other.
Sure.
It's those three.
What are the cross streets? Do you know? Or,
Stinson and 18th or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 18th.
That's wild.
Yeah, those are my three favorite ones. And it's for all the reasons that we've discussed. They take care of their humidor. Yeah. They clearly give a shit about their cigars.
And the guys know a little bit about cigars.
They care.
Yeah.
They genuinely care.
Right.
Like, and you know, well, at least I know who I'm fucking with when I roll up to the counter with my 4 or 5 cigars. And they're like, oh, nice.
Yeah,
you pick some good ones. I'm like, okay, this guy knows. Otherwise, they roll up and they're just like, oh, okay. And it's like, you don't know what I just did.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience in stopping at some of these shops? They're all a little bit different. You said you stop at a few of them, right?
So I'll tell you, the most entertaining ones are the bad ones. And it all happened in one day. So I had the car. Had all day, and I'm like, today I'm going to drive around the entire metro area and just, because I want to know who has what for what prices.
Sure.
Because I quickly realized this same cigar could be $10 at one shop and $7 at another shop.
Sure.
And it might be underpriced at one or overpriced at another. And that doesn't mean that shop is consistently overpriced.
Right.
That might be the best place to go to buy a Marco V.
Right.
Because everywhere else I go, Marco V's are $8, but this place they're only $7, right? But then they might drastically overcharge on something else, like, oh, this fucking Christoph that should be $9.99 is $13.99. You see what I'm saying? It's all over the place,
right?
And same thing, they'll have two boxes of the exact same cigar at two different prices next to each other. One's $7.99 and one's $8.99, and it's like, do you just did your price go up from your own distributor?
What happens is they don't.
Different guy working
compare
that
shop.
day.
The guy down who's 2 blocks down from them is, if he's selling it at a different price, you want to be competitive. Otherwise, he's $2 more, and he doesn't realize.
So I spent all day, right?
Yeah.
All day. And
did you pick a region or?
Yeah, North Metro.
Yeah.
North Metro down to me, right?
Okay.
So kind of like a V shape, Marco V. But it actually did coincidentally kind of end up like that, right? Like everything kind of targeted and funneled back to my house for obvious reasons. So I stop in, and I can't remember, even if I wanted to name drop them, I can't remember which shop it was. But I will never shop at any of these places again. And it all happened in one day. First when I showed up, I walk into the humidor, and I try to be pretty polite and respectful about it because I understand theft is a big thing. So I stand in the middle as much as I can. I try not to get too close, and I keep my hands behind my back.
You're on video.
Yeah, well,
smile.
I'll get to that, right?
Yeah.
So I just try to be respectful and polite, and do my deal because I'm looking right now. And I'm definitely buying something, but I'm looking for what you have right now. Is there anything that sticks out to me? Is there anything I want to try? Do you have any of the things I've been looking for? What they don't know is I went on Cigars International the day before and literally had a fucking list of like 30 different cigars I wanted to try.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Guy comes in, can I help you find anything? I go, no, I'm just looking. And he goes, okay. 5 minutes later, he comes back in. Can I help you find something? Like, no, I'm just looking right now.
I haven't changed.
And then all of a sudden, another 5 minutes goes by. He walks in and he goes, you're taking too long. And I said, excuse me? And he goes, I can't watch you and man my shop. And I go, dude, you have cameras. And he goes, those aren't working. And I go, first of all, you shouldn't admit that out loud. Second of all, that's not my fucking problem. And third, I'm a fucking customer trying to buy cigars.
With money that now I'm most likely not going to spend in your store.
Yep. And he just kept harassing me. And so I turned around and I go, here's the deal. And I pulled out my list and I go, I planned on spending $100 on cigars today. And I pulled out my list and I go, I've already identified you have half of my list and I ain't buying none of these motherfuckers from you. And just walked out. Went to the next shop. Very similar experience. Almost verbatim.
Wow.
Third shop I went to. Terrible humidor. It's just basically a wall humidor.
Okay. Yep.
But it's right in front of the register. So I do the same thing. I'm standing in front of it with my arms behind my back. You know, he can see me. I'm standing there for a while looking through what they got. And I go, you know what? I'm going to grab this fucking Habano over here. Can't remember who it is off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. I open the case and I grab the cigar and I close the case. And he turns around and he goes, hey, you can't go in there. And I went, what? And I already have the cigar in my hands. And I go, what? And he goes, you tell me what you want and then I'll get it for you.
Oh, geez.
And I go, so you think you're going to pick my cigar for me? Like, because we've gone through this on the channel. You guys not, like, I will sit there and look at the cigar and like, is this the cigar I want to buy? Like, I'm looking at the cap. I'm looking at the actual foot. Like, is there a big hole? Is there no hole? You know, I'm looking at the quality. Is there any weird imperfections along the wrapper? You know, because sometimes a tobacco beetle will, you can see it. There's a hole.
Yeah.
And it's like,
then
I'm not buying my $10 cigar. That's a waste of money.
Right.
So he goes, yeah, you tell me what you want and then I'll grab it. And I go, okay. And I open the thing. I set the cigar back in. I close it and I walked out. Like, some of these guys are just fucking rude. And I get it. We talked about this at Anthony's. Right. Theft is a big problem in the industry. Yep. So much to the point where if you're a regular customer and you steal a cigar, some of these shops won't even confront you. They'll see you steal it, but it's so important to keep you as a customer. They're like, fuck it, we can't lose a customer over one cigar. But I get that, so I'm not doing it. But dude, the way they would act, and I don't know if it's the way I was dressed. I don't know if it's because I had work boots on, or who knows, whatever it is. But it
could have been the training of the person who's working the store.
Or a jaded retail employee. It could be a million things, right? Yeah. But it's a horrible experience. And so I've centered in on a few different places I like to go, because not only are the people cool, but I could be in that cigar humidor for a half hour, 45 minutes, and not once. Sometimes somebody will be like, hey, are you looking for something specific?
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, no, I'm just kind of indecisive. And they're like, oh, okay, no problem. And then they never bother me again.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
No, that's a really fascinating.
A safe question would be just what I like to ask them is, what's your go-to? What are you here for? Would you stop by to buy a Fuente? Macanudo?
Yeah. So you're in shops a lot.
Do you ever post up?
What do you mean?
Whenever he's in a humidor, he'll see the guy and
I just say, what's your go-to? And I mean, what's your favorite cigar?
Is this a customer or the guy working there?
It's a customer.
Okay.
And then he'll say, well, I kind of really like these Rocky Patels, and I said, well, I'm with Marco V. Have you ever tried a Marco V? And he, yeah, I've heard about them, but never tried one. Why don't you try one? You'll be pleasantly surprised. Right? I mean, that's all you have to do. Soft sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. I mean, retail, they need to create an experience for the consumer that is pleasant for them, or else you'll never walk through those doors again.
Well, and it's already a fledgling industry. Running anything in retail, any 100%. Brick and mortar retail, fledgling. Tobacco, fledgling.
Yeah.
The taxes, you guys already kind of talked about this, but they're so fucking high that most consumers, once you get into cigars, you go to the shop and you go, these are way overpriced. I wonder if I can get these cheaper online. You quickly figure out you absolutely can by a mile.
Yes, you can.
So you need to do everything you can do to make your experience better in my shop than your experience online.
Right.
By accusing your customers of theft or treating them like shit, not only are you losing that one customer that one day, not only will they never come through,
but they'll tell their buddies don't go there.
And you're creating an entire customer for the internet now. So not only are you fucking your shop, but you just cost every other shop in town a customer as well.
And if you ask any guy that runs a retailer, he will say, well, you know, our number for cigars, our number one threat is online. So when you hear stories like that, that's horrible, you know, because there are shops that can add a tremendous amount of value, like you've talked about, with their expertise, with the way they store and manage the cigars. Let's say you don't want to store them at home. You find a humidor or a shop that manages their cigars really well, is passionate about the products, and is constantly trying to bring in some value for the customer. That's going to make me want to go into that particular shop. But if you're ostracized and they're coming at it a space of everybody's evil, then it's not going to be a good scenario at all.
Not at all. No. And again, like we were talking about, it's hard enough to get people to do these things, and there's already not enough places to go smoke a cigar, right? So like,
so true.
You can go hang out at these places and smoke a cigar if it's the right spot. If it's close to you, there's not a lot of options, right?
Right.
So if you're turning around and alienating an entire neighborhood worth of people,
right?
I mean, it's just not a smart business model, and I honestly just can't believe it happens at all. Because you gotta think, a cigar smoker outside of a lounge, if you're going to a smoke shop to buy a cigar, that is probably your most valuable customer.
Yeah.
Now, it's not the guy coming to buy roll your own tobacco off the wall.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not the old lady who comes in and buys 2 packs of Newports every 3 days. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's the cigar smokers. This is the guy who literally can easily go buy your product anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Unlike the cigarette smoker, right? The cigarette smoker, you can't buy cigarettes online.
Right.
You can't. You see what I'm getting at?
Right.
Like, it's so fucking obvious to me. I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating myself in cycles.
But think
at this
about
point.
what you're saying too is and this is what kind of attracts us to the cigar industry, is it's a very communal process. Most of the time when we're smoking cigars, it's with friends like this, like we're doing today. So you're going in and you're buying multiple cigars. You're most likely going to share those with. You're going to buy 3 or 4 and maybe share them with a couple friends. So that shop owner is then, preventing, that word of mouth or that sharing aspect of that particular experience. So it's hard. And they're probably coming at it from the aspect of, we've experienced a lot of theft or stuff like that. So it's a challenging concept. But
and I would get it if I was up there finger fucking each cigar.
You talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, like if you're in there and you're picking up every single cigar and you're handsy with everything, and you kind of got like your pockets and you look like you're fine. But if the dude is standing in the middle of the room and he's got his hands behind his back.
Yeah.
Like,
you did everything right. Yeah.
The other thing.
Plus, I worked retail, so fuck them.
We didn't mention the guys who will take the cigar in our cellophane and go.
Oh, yeah, that's another
trying
one.
to smell the cigar through the cellophane. I'm going, you can't smell it.
Not really. Maybe I have an extremely sensitive sense of smell, so I can smell the cigar through the cellophane.
Okay.
But I even catch myself like, what am I doing? Like, yes, I can smell that it's a cigar.
Right.
But all of these cigars smell like the same cigar through the cellophane. Like, it's just, and even if you pull the cigar out of the cellophane and then smell it,
right,
there's such a subtle difference between cigars. It's kind of a worthless move. Like, and it's one of those noob moves that I still catch myself doing every once in a while. Yeah, I'll pick it up and.
Yeah. I mean, what we experience is we do a lot of events, and so we're exposed to a lot of different types of cigar smokers. And you get people like you that know a lot about cigars, and then you get a lot of people that don't know a lot about cigars. But the basic component is these people want to buy a cigar to enjoy it either with friends or by themselves, and so it's an experience, and so you want to treat everybody essentially the same, and so that's challenging, but that's how you want to, and that's kind of why we created the brand too, is to create, we got different cigars for different types of cigar smokers or different types of the day and
sizes.
Shapes, and so it's
oftentimes they really don't know what they're in. A lot of them. I like something mild. Oh, I like something real mild. What do you got that's mild?
Right.
I don't want a harsh.
Right.
I don't want anything harsh.
Right.
That's what I think is interesting too, is that specific statement. When I'm asking guys, I'm like, hey, you smoke cigars? We're doing a podcast or something. They're like, yeah, for sure. I'm like, well, what do you like? And they're like, well, give me something light and something smooth.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I'll bust out and I'll like pick one. and they always go for the light colored cigar.
Yes.
And I think this is one of the biggest misnomers in cigars. Light colored cigars do not necessarily equal a light or a smoother smoke.
No.
Well, think about, based on what we've talked about, your body, which is the strength of the cigar, where your nicotine is stored, is in the filler. You don't see the filler from the wrapper. Now, your flavor comes from your wrapper, but that doesn't determine the strength of the cigar. The strength of the cigar comes from the filler. And so by picking a light colored one, you could get a really strong cigar from a light colored wrapper.
Yeah, and that Connecticut shit, man. I'm telling you, every time I smoke a super light colored cigar, there's something where I get like this. It's almost like I'm chewing tobacco. Like it starts to burn in the back of my throat. It almost creates a little bit of gut rot. And I brought this up the first time I talked to you.
Yeah.
Am I alone on this? So what is the deal there? Why is the Connecticut wrapper like that? And why is it when you look at Cigar Aficionado, when you look at Cigars International and they give you that little flavor grading, anything with those light wrappers is always labeled as a mild cigar. Mm-hmm. Whereas like a triple Maduro is always on that darker
Maduro,
red.
Yeah.
And for me, that is not how it works.
Right.
Like darker cigars, the Maduros and the Habanos tend to be a lot smoother for me. They're not stronger.
Right.
So I don't explain that to me. Like, what the fuck is going on? Is this completely made up and subjective?
That's exactly right.
He's big on this, yeah. Because you don't even like the strong meat. You like to talk about flavor, full flavor profiles.
A triple Maduro just means the filler, binder, and wrapper are all Maduro leaves, and it has nothing to do with being harsh or biting. It just has to do with flavor.
Right.
So let's dig into this, because this is something that I still can't get 100% clarity on, because this is probably the most convoluted industry out there for any type of consumer product. We've been using a lot of terminology, Maduro, fucking Connecticut. Those are the leaf
Habano,
types.
leaf.
Yeah. Those are the leaf types, right? And there's a bunch of them. There's like sun grown, shade grown. Do those things affect the color? Like how am I trying to ask this question? Basically, what makes a Maduro a dark leaf?
Yeah.
Is that coming from the seed? Is that the type?
No. So we have some good pictures and footage on our website about this too. But Maduro essentially means it's grown in the elements of the sun, so it's fully exposed to all the elements in the sun. A shade grown is actually grown either under a cheesecloth or like a cloth above that filters the sun, so the veins don't fully develop in a particular cigar. Or it's they have shade grown tobacco grown in Ecuador, which has that natural cloud cover. It's actually one of the unique regions of the world that always has kind of a unique shade with the cloud cover. But that doesn't refer to necessarily the strength. The strength comes from the part of the plant or the leaf. So you have corona, which is at the top part of the plant. That's exposed the closest to the sun. The crown of the plant is exposed to the most elements. Then you have the ligero, which is the second piece. And that has, so whenever you absorb the most amount of sun, you are increasing the nicotine components of that particular part of the plant. And so that goes in, you can use that to increase the strength of your particular tobacco. Then it's the seco component, which is the heavy body part of the plant. And then the bottom part you usually throw away. So it has to do with the part of the plant of how it's exposed to the elements of the sun. And so it's not necessarily determined on whether it's shade or Maduro grown. Do you have any more comments?
No, that's good. That's good. That's it.
So, I mean, it's a leaf, so they all start off green.
Yeah.
So what makes a Maduro turn into a black leaf versus like a Connecticut that always stays that light milky brown? Is that part of the aging process?
Well, Marco, we have a nice photo on our website of Marco and I in this field. It's 100 yards by 100 yards, if you can picture something that big, and the whole thing's covered with nylon mesh.
It's like a cheesecloth. Yeah,
a cheesecloth, and that provides shade. And those plants are grown specifically for the lighter colored leaf.
Right, and it's meant so that particular plant doesn't develop the veins or that dark color that you'd get.
So like this vein that's running the length there. If this were sun grown, that vein would be thicker and more pronounced.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, that's technically a shade grown as well.
Okay.
And it has to do with the species of the leaf too. But like the shade color, this is not grown in the full elements of the sun. This is protected by some type of cloth or the shade of the clouds as well. So it's and then the Maduro is grown out into the full sun. And yeah, it has to do.
So that's what changes the color is the amount of sun.
Exactly. Yep.
Even though when they're growing, they're all green. It's once you pull them out of it's once you harvest the plant and it starts aging and curing and fermenting and all that. That's when it changes its color.
Exactly. Yep.
He mentioned sometimes it's cloud cover. Well, Ecuadorian shade grown tobacco, they have like 90% of the time it's overcast in Ecuador, so it's a natural
barrier to that sun.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing we talked about too is, because I've read a lot about this, everybody seems to have tried it and nobody seems to be able to do it. You can't seem to grow tobacco in America on American soil and turn it into a high quality cigar. What's up with that?
Well,
is it just our environment, soil? Because they grow a lot of it in Florida, North Carolina, all the way up and down that
mostly
coast.
Cigarette tobacco.
Is that? And that seems to be the truth.
It's a different type of tobacco.
The cigarette tobacco or the tobacco that goes into chew, but a really predominant area of tobacco growing is Connecticut. That's where you hear Connecticut seeds. A lot of it has to do with the economics of it. They used to grow some of the best wrapper tobacco in Connecticut.
The state,
in the state, because those seeds and the way they grow it. They take those seeds now and they grow them in other regions like Ecuador, Dominican Republic to create a little bit more economical, price to it. But you can't grow. It's a lot like wine too, where you can't grow, a particular variety,
grape.
Right? It has to do with that sun soil combination that we talked about, at Anthony's, into a really high quality cigar. A lot of it has to do with the elements of where it's grown too, and the seeds.
That's super interesting. That's why I'm so fascinated about all of this, because it's just so complex and so varied.
The farmers,
and then to bring all of these variables together to create something consistent and reliable. It's like you guys are basically doing. I was listening to a beer brewer talk the other day, and the best brewers in the world are the ones that work at like Anheuser-Busch, creating Bud Light and Coors Light, that kind of shit, because they can create these things so consistently across the country and make tweaks to the recipe. So the water in Colorado doesn't taste the same as the water in, South Carolina. So they will adjust their recipes accordingly to where when you open a Coors Light or a Bud Light or whatever, you don't know where it was brewed. It all tastes exactly the same.
Right.
That is the challenge of that is crazy, because when you get to and now I'm remembering who I was talking. This was Jeremy, the owner of Broken Clock, when he was on the podcast. Those are your best brewers.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, your best brewers are like the guys at the little craft brewery. No, it's actually not, because when you get into craft brews, those weird little differences and idiosyncrasies, that's kind of part of the deal. It's kind of like an art at that point, right? It's not a science.
Right.
But when you start wanting to distribute your beer nationally, you can't brew everything in one spot. You got to start brewing it all over the country so you can get beer everywhere in a timely fashion. In order to do that, you have to have the best brewers in the world that can tweak those recipes for that kind of consistency.
I often thought about in breweries.
You can pull that mic back to you if you're more comfortable sitting back.
I'm fine.
I do it a lot. You'll catch me.
If you have a brewmeister who's at a small location, he's doing, he's testing to see what happens if he has a rough night and he's out on a bender or he's been smoking or something, and it's going to affect that batch because instead of having a big Anheuser-Busch type of operation.
It absolutely
and I
could.
think you and I talked about this at Anthony's about Surly, right? When you said the beer doesn't taste the same of when they were in their Brooklyn Park facility, and then they tried to scale up and go a little bit bigger.
And they admitted that. They said, yes, our beer is going to change because the water won't be the same.
Yeah.
But we're confident we can adjust the recipe to where you're barely going to notice a difference. But there's a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, that say, I stopped liking Surly when they moved. And they go, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened. And it's like, I know what fucking happened because they warned us about this.
Right.
Like, I talked to Omar about this. I'd love to get Omar on the podcast. But I mean, if you think it's not a dramatic difference. It still tastes like Surly Furious, but it is absolutely not the exact same Surly Furious as it was up in Brooklyn Center.
Well, and I think we touched on a little
Brooklyn
bit.
Park, whatever it is.
When you or whatever, yeah. When you think about cigars, we've already talked about this a little bit. You have so many variabilities that go into it, or variables that go into it. You have, the sun, the moisture, the region where it's grown, that tobacco, just from the plant to where it's growing. You have then all the variables that go into the processing of the tobacco and the aging and the fermenting. Then once it's in the factory, you have all the variables that happen with the two hands that are building, the cigar itself. And then you have the variabilities of the supply chain of bringing it up to where it's going to be distributed, and then where it's stored in a particular humidor. And so that's the hardest part about cigars, is creating consistency within not only just a batch of cigars, but even a box of cigars. And so that's one of the competitive advantages that we have, because of the way we control the fields of where our tobacco comes from, and the rollers. We have the same 15 rollers. All of the rollers have to have 15 plus years of experience, so we can guarantee that draw that we're all experiencing and the consistency in all our cigars. Now, the big brands, you might have, and we've talked about this, you've seen some of these where the cigars are rolled. It's 100 yards of 100 yards of rollers. I mean, it's an amazing sight.
500 rollers.
500
one room.
In one room. So you might have someone
A literal sweatshop.
Yeah, where they just started rolling cigars, and
There's going to be apprentices there,
right?
Newbies
rolling that $15 cigar that you've had, and so
that's what blows my mind. Like, why wouldn't you put that guy on your seconds?
Right.
Like, he's not rolling a proper cigar. Put him on your seconds. Why would you? But I also understand it. Like, these guys at some point in time, and that's what my question was going to be, is like, so where do you get the experience? You got to start somewhere to get 15 years of experience, right? Exactly.
Well, and that's kind of what makes Marco V unique. Obviously our volumes are less than those giant brands, but we it affords us the ability to age a large amount of tobacco for us. That goes into roughly a year's worth of cigars to create that consistency. So if you're having a box of Marco V's now and in December, that cigar is going to taste almost identical. Whereas you might have cigars in your box of one of those big brands that taste differently because it's coming from a different part of the field, or it's rolled by a different roller. One of our competitive advantages is we have the same rollers rolling it from the same part of the field that it comes from. So it's when we talk about what makes you guys different, it's how we control the entire supply chain of,
and
our cigars.
I will validate that and give you guys props on that, because now that it's been long enough, I've smoked so many cigars and they are incredibly consistent.
I appreciate that.
If somebody doesn't like them, fine, I can
Right.
get that. It's like music at that point. It's all subjective and preferences. Cool. But you're not going to sit here and say that it's a shittily made product. It's just not. It's not something that I'm even willing to entertain, because, like I said, I think the first cigar I smoked, I don't remember. It was definitely one of your original three.
Okay.
I just picked it up in one of my hauls going around town like
Right.
I always do. And I wasn't that impressed with it. I was like, it's fine. It's okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then I tried another one in that line, but one of the other, because you have gold, silver, gold, silver, and
Diamond.
platinum. That's what it is, gold, diamond, and platinum.
Right.
I don't remember which flavor I tried first,
Right.
but I ended up with, I think it was the gold,
Yeah.
which is your strongest of
Right.
those three.
Right.
Yep.
And that one is when I Instagrammed you, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is good. I'm a big fan of this. Like,
Yeah.
I just discovered you guys, and I'm a big fan. And it's funny because I'm realizing where I'm going with this is what I had realized is I'm not even sure I didn't like the first cigar. I don't think that humidor was properly managed.
Okay.
So it was too soft. It was way too soft. And that's the thing is it was like, it's a good cigar, but I feel like it's a little overpriced. Like I said this on a podcast. I was like, I'm not feeling it for that price. I can go get something else for $7-8, whatever. Well, like I said, then I went to a different shop, grabbed a different flavor because I was like, I want to give these guys a second chance,
Yeah.
Because I had already learned that, I love these fucking, these punch knuckle busters and I love these Alec Bradley Sungrown, but I had already run into those being inconsistent. So I was like, maybe that one was inconsistent.
Okay.
It wasn't until I talked to you guys and met you at Anthony's where it was like, oh, I bet it was a poorly managed humidor, and that's why I didn't enjoy that first cigar. Or it was just the blend.
Right.
Like it was just
Mark, I want to interject something here. What about, let's talk a little bit about after you pick the leaves first time off of a cigar plant. It might be this tall, it might be this tall. Anyways, after you pick the leaves off the plant, it regrows the seconds. There's another batch
It's called a second sprout.
Second
So
sprout
that's what seconds
from the
are?
same plant.
Yeah. So
And it's not as good as the first.
right. And in not all cases, but that's where a lot of the tobacco they'll use in what you call short filler. So they'll grind up those leaves and they'll put them in a short filler cigar.
Oh, really?
Or
I
they'll-
thought the short fillers were the scraps from rolling your long filler cigars.
Some of that.
It's some of that, and then it's also a lot of the second sprout, and then like, so if someone's trying to start a boutique brand or something like that, oftentimes these manufacturers will use that second sprout. So they want to utilize as much of that plant as possible. And so the second sprout is something that could end up in the cigar. So that's another reason why you want to be very careful about what you're using there.
Okay. So explain to me what the hell makes these so fucking special then? Because these
those are really good.
So these are your house blend. These are the ones that you guys hooked me up with as the official sponsor, or as the official cigar. These are the ones you guys hooked me up with. And ironically, I love these just as much as I love the high end.
Yeah, that's great.
Like I still think I like the Palladium better, but that's just because it's a Habano. It's like exactly my vibe right now. But as far as the quality of the construction, I can't actually there was one out of that first batch you gave me where there was a tiny little beetle hole in the side of one of them. It was so faint and so tiny. I was smoking it and I was like, why can't I get a good draw off this?
It was leaking.
Exactly. So all I did, and it was right in the middle, I just plugged it like I was smoking a pipe,
Yeah,
and then it was fine. And once I got to it, it was a non-issue.
You should have just put some duct tape on it.
But it was 1 out of 25.
Right.
It was 1 out of 25. Whereas I'm not getting that with anybody else, right? There's just drastic inconsistencies, like you said, within even an individual box. They're just so again, as I'm learning more from talking to you guys, a lot of these companies are putting out what's called a second.
Right.
That's not what I thought it was. So you're telling me that's the second regrow of that plant. Cool. Okay, so it could still even be a long filler technically.
It still could be a long filler.
The leaves,
Yeah,
in general, the leaves are shorter. I mean, our leaves are, on our premium cigars are
big,
18 inches maybe, and the shorter ones are a foot
when they come off the plant.
And you told me this is still a premium cigar, but it's just not good enough to put this beautiful wrapper on and box them up. So So I want to know what is not good enough about this, and then I want to know why it is still so fucking good.
So
but not good enough.
It's 100. It's 100% still that first sprout. So it's the premium leaves that come off the particular plants in Nicaragua. These happen to come from the plant we love the most in Nicaragua is Jalapa, which is on the north end of the country on the mountain range that separates Honduras and Nicaragua. There's a mountain range, and then Jalapa is on the other side of it.
So what is Jalapa?
Jalapa is a region within Nicaragua.
So you could get a Maduro, you could get any type of leaf from that
Absolutely,
area.
yeah.
But there's something special about the Jalapa region.
Yeah, it has to do in if you were to pick up the soil in Jalapa, it's as close as you're going to get to Cuban soil that you've ever. I mean,
gotcha.
And even like picking up the soil, it's like super rich and black. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful soil.
It looks totally different than the dirt from any other area.
Right. It's pretty
amazing.
And that's very similar to what Cuba has as well. But the reason why these are house blends is if you remember when we were talking about cigar or tobacco processing, after it comes out of the curing barn, it goes into this process called sorting. And so there's a number of people that are sorting it into A grades, B grades, C grades, D grades, whatever. And so the A grade stuff goes into what we put our labels on, and then everything else goes into the B, C, D grades, goes into our house blends. And so it has to do with that grading process. Now there might be an imperfection with the soil, a vein, or something like that. And so these we can't always guarantee the way they'll burn or draw. A lot of the times it's still really good. It's still rolled by the same rollers. But it's just not. The tobacco doesn't grade out as high, but they are different blends. They're more simplistic blends, and so you're really tasting the pure, Jalapa region, which is we love these cigars too. So
they're incredible, man. They really are. They really are an incredible smoke. It's an incredible cigar.
How about talking about value? I mean,
that's what I was just going to say.
We call it the best value in the cigar industry.
I think it is too, because you get 25 of them for $80 off your website, and price that out, it's barely over $3 a cigar.
Right.
You go to any tobacco shop and go to the bottom rung and pick up a $5 Cuban reject.
Oh my gosh.
Or a Cuban round. It's not the same caliber.
Species.
Exactly. It's not even those things should not even be referred to as a cigar.
Right.
And these are cheaper than that. That's what blows my mind.
Yeah,
and I'm not kissing your ass because you guys are on the podcast. I'm genuine and I'm serious about these. Like, I smoked that first batch you guys sent me way too fast because I did not think I was going to love these. I thought, oh yeah, they're going to be good. I'll have them for podcast guests who I don't want to give a $10 cigar to.
Right,
dude. I fired up one because I was so excited when they got here. Man, I got home from snowblowing. I cracked open the Fireball. When I snowblow, I'm obsessed with those little bottles of Fireball.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is about snowblowing. Yeah, dude, cinnamon whiskey. But I cracked open the Fireball, took a couple sips. I'm freezing my ass off, changed my clothes, fired up that cigar, and I was like, holy shit, man. And yeah, I smoked them just a little bit too fast last month. We still made them stretch. But
so part of the reason, and high-end tobacco shops will call it their house blends too. They won't even advertise them as Marco V's, but people come in looking specifically for those, and they rant and rave. Now the issue is we just can't guarantee the quality on them.
That's why you don't put the label on them.
Exactly, but we're still very proud of it, and we feel like it really allows the cigar smoker to taste the regions. For a Nicaraguan cigar, that if you want to taste what Nicaraguan tobacco tastes like, that's right there. It's fantastic. So we get pretty creative with our blends for our ones we put the labels on. These are pretty simplistic blends. So all of them are the heaviest parts of Jalapa, and then we'll mix in another region called Condega, and then Esteli. Esteli is where a lot of the factories are, and so there's generally 3 leaves.
I've seen that Esteli. So Esteli,
right?
Yes.
So that's that.
It's in the middle of the country.
So
Alec Bradley makes a cigar, the Black Market Esteli.
So if you go,
all of them.
If you go to Nicaragua, that is where all the cigar factories are. So my father's cigars, all the factories are in Esteli
and close to each other.
Okay. So
there's little bitty Marco V's right in the midst of all of them.
Really?
So it's similar to Santiago in the Dominican Republic. Santiago is where all the factories are. Now the fields are there's some fields in there. Our field is in an area called La Canela, which is just west of Santiago, and that's supposedly what we feel is the best cigar growing area in the Dominican Republic.
La Canela Valley.
Yeah, and so Esteli grows a lot of tobacco, and so you fly into Managua when you go into Nicaragua, and you drive up. The first city you hit is Esteli, and that's where a lot of the commerce and factories are. You go another 4 hours north, that's where Jalapa is. And the first time I ever smoked Jalapa tobacco, I was just absolutely blown away. And so like some of the highest graded cigars of there use Jalapa tobacco. So I knew right away we wanted to use a lot of that. And so a lot of our house blends contain that. Everything with a white label under Privatos uses a lot of Jalapa tobacco, like your Palladium that you're smoking there too. So we're really proud of that region. But we essentially took, the model that we did in the Dominican Republic and transferred that over to Nicaragua too. So that was part of the progression. It's a harder place to do business.
It is.
And you can tell them about some of our experiences in Nicaragua.
And that's because they're commies, right?
Yeah.
Tell them a little bit. I got to piss. Yeah,
Okay, I got pissed.
Tell them about driving up.
Right. We
First, how often do you guys go down there?
not
Stay up on
last 2 or 3 years. Not very often because they tell us don't come down.
So is it like once a year you go down there?
Mm-hmm.
One of these times, is it expensive?
It's not expensive so much as you're stopped on this 4-hour trip we take up to Jalapa. We're stopped 2 or 3 times by guys, army guys with machine guns who stop your car and say, "Can we see your papers?" And what they're really looking for is
A bribe.
Yep, because they're not going to give you a ticket or anything.
So how much is the bribe? Is it like $5 for each guy, or is it hundreds?
No, it's usually when we go down there, we have our guy take us around in his car, and he always knows the amount, and he's paying them off, and it's just how it is. It's a way of life.
One of these times, I want to come down there with you guys. I want to see this in person.
It's all for real.
I believe it. I believe it. And honestly, when I get like baller money, like fuck you money, I want to go to Cuba and see it too. Just because that's where it all came from.
That's right.
Right. Like
you got to do that.
It's whatever, but I want to see it because it's where it all came from. It's like, it's the same reason you want to go to Ireland, or Scotland. It's like, because that's where Scotch and whiskey were born.
Right. I mentioned this before, but if you go to anywhere in Europe, anywhere, and you go into a cigar store and you say, do you have a Cuban? Do you have any Cuban cigars? Yeah, we do. They're like $32 for a little stupid Toro.
Which is crazy because they're not even illegal over there.
Right.
Like, why are they so much?
Well, plus the people have a choice buying Dominican, Nicaraguan, Honduran, or Cuban, and they pick anything but Cuban. Maybe it's because of price.
Well, and we talked about this earlier too. Is there's also the huge argument now that the New World cigars are better than the actual Cubans.
Right. They are.
I don't know if they are or not. I'll tell you, I got a couple Cohiba Red Dots coming tomorrow. I'll let you know if the $22 hype is real.
Yeah. Well, and again, it gets back to preference, and for a lot of people, I mean, if you can source a really good Cuban cigar and verify it's from the regions that support the adequate processing of that tobacco, then buy it. I mean, God, get it, and that's going to be a really good cigar. The issue is it's really hard to tell and verify that. And again, I hate to keep repeating, but that is part of the reason why we started the business is when you buy a Marco V, you know the supply chain that it's going through, and you can verify that it is, the tobacco processing and everything that's been done has been done the right way. So that's the important piece of it.
That is a cool fucking ashtray. I appreciate you guys bringing that. I'm excited. I got to clean it now, but I'm excited to reshoot my default promo. So I'm going to have the Tone Vault cup, and then I'm going to have your guys, and I'm going to have a cigar burning because I want a little bit of smoke coming out of it. Then I'm going to snap that picture, and that's going to be like the default. It's going to be great. I'm so excited for it.
That's awesome.
So what are some of these events you guys have? Do you guys got anything coming up?
Tell them about the event on Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yeah. It's... You'll be blown away by this.
It's 40 microbreweries.
You guys were telling me about this at Anthony's.
Yeah.
So keep going.
And they're all gonna. It's actually a charitable fundraiser for the Prior Lake Association of homeowners around the lake. They're keeping the lake clean and everything. It's the association's job. So they're having a fundraiser, and they're having it out on the lake on the ice. and they're going to have all these beer tents, and for $35 you get a mug, and you go around, you can sample all the beer from 40 different
And since it's
breweries.
outside, you can smoke some cigars.
And so we're going to have Marco V's there.
Yeah, it's a cool setup. So it's out on the frozen lake, and then there's bonfire pits throughout. How many bonfire pits?
5.
5 bonfire pits, and then all these breweries, and then Marco V cigars that you can smoke while
And
you're
this is out in
drinking this
Prior
beer.
Lake, huh?
Yeah.
This Saturday.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do? Do you bring cigars and do you give them away to people, or do you try to sell your cigars?
no.
there?
We're selling. Yeah, we'll sell
Somebody has to pay for the cigars. We're not going to give away $1,000 worth of cigars.
But no,
But that's what I was wondering. Like, does somebody hire you? Like, hey, I want you to come and blah 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 blah, or is it like part of your? Do you have like built in like we're gonna dedicate $4,000 a year to promo or advertising or whatever, and this is how we do that. Like, we're
so
gonna spend $1,000 each time.
We
but-
do a lot of what you're talking about with charity events and stuff like that. But where it's experience events, we'll go. I mean, it's important for us to sit down and talk to the people.
Do you say you have to run to the bathroom?
Yeah,
Go for it. Go for it
Yeah.
now.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I got to piss again too.
All right.
It's just nice to go on rotation because there's
Right.
always 2 people here.
Yeah, and so for us, events are an important piece of it. So you're able to talk to the people that are smoking the cigars.
I zipped
And,
up my coat. And put
yeah,
it in there.
you're all wrapped around that that
Oh,
microphone.
jeez. You zip the cable in there?
Yeah.
But we'll do. So we'll usually do a discounted cigars, or else we'll team up with a shop as well, right? And then the shop will sell the cigars, the Marco V. So it'll be a Marco V event, but the shop will sell the cigars. And so, but other times it'll be where we're selling directly to the public to enhance that experience of the beer festival. And there's also a barbecue festival. Yeah.
It would be super cool if we could put together a collaboration where we do like, not necessarily a music festival, because
Yeah.
that's just too much.
Yeah.
But we find it cool. Like maybe, I doubt we could get away with it at the Caboose, but that would be like kind of the perfect spot where we have this amazing outdoor place for
yeah.
music.
Yeah.
But we got to find it at like a brewery. Like Broken Clock actually would be a good place for this.
Oh yeah.
They got a great outdoor space, have bands playing and shit. They bring in food trucks because that's just what you do at breweries here. And then fucking have you guys show up and set up shop and just have like a I don't know what we would call it, but like a mini fest, like a mini festival, like
I mean that gets into the experience and usually like scotch tasting or whiskey tasting or beer tasting, cigars are a great complement to that. The challenge you run into is true beer connoisseurs. They want to taste all the different elements that come out of the beer, and cigar smoking impacts that. And so
it makes it better.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to tell them, for sure.
Oh, hey, scoot this way a little
sorry,
bit.
my bad.
No, you're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
fine. It happens, dude. It's not.
You gotta line everything up.
Yeah, it's just so you stay in frame. Otherwise, they can't see your beautiful face.
So I mean, there's a bunch of unique events. We do cigar dinners as well. So they'll bring in a chef that'll do a private dinner for 20 people, and then the last course is a cigar, and
so
you
cool.
might have a winery that's also affiliated with it that will pair the wines with the meal, and then the end is an after dinner wine with a cigar. We do a ton of events at golf courses, so we're big because golf courses are a huge part, or cigars are a huge part of golfing.
Yeah.
A lot of guys won't golf unless they have a cigar in their mouth, and that's where you talk about the kings. There will be guys that say, "Oh, the king will last me 18 holes," because it's about a 4-hour cigar.
So what do they do? Do you keep it in your mouth while you're swinging, or do they have like a mobile thing that you set your cigar on?
Oh, there's a bunch of different gadgets.
Because I'm immediately thinking about disc golf. That's
disc golf.
That's a whole untapped market.
Can you believe how popular that's becoming?
Dude, and I was in it when it was blowing up. I threw out my shoulder, so I can essentially not disc anymore, but I used to be heavy into it. I mean, we're talking in my late 20s, I was probably going every single day.
Really?
Yeah, dude. And I got super into it with a bunch of friends from the music scene. It was like our deal, dude. And I know guys who went on tour as bands and literally scheduled their tour in and around areas that were really good disc golfing spots.
Oh my god!
Because you pull up at noon, you load up your gear because load-in's at 2 or 3 or whatever, but you don't play till 8 or 9 at night. What are you doing for 6 hours? These guys,
Right.
let's go disc.
Yeah.
It just became part of the culture. And yeah, I mean, guys are smoking weed, they're drinking beer, they're smoking cigarettes, but cigars never got into
man.
that culture. But that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, man, I'd love to smoke a cigar while I'm disc golfing next time, but where would I set my cigar down? Like, I'm not setting it down on these dirty ass benches or on the ground or on my bag.
Well, in a lot of the obviously golf courses, to keep the grass so nice, use a ton of chemicals and fertilizers and stuff. So you don't necessarily want to put your cigar down on the grass,
Right?
So John and I, well, he's probably a 3 or 4 cigar guy when he's golfing. He just puts it on the cart, in a spot. They have devices like a tee that you stick in that's got a flat surface that you can put the cigar in.
I was just going to say, build something that goes into a cup holder.
Right.
It sits in the cup holder, and then you just set your
Put
cigar
the cigar
on
right there, yeah.
Not even an ashtray. Yoshi, will you quit it? That dog does not make any sense. He's barking at people while wagging his tail.
Yeah, he wants that attention. Look at him. He's
They're
all dialed
Chihuahuas.
in.
To answer your question, they're Chihuahuas. It's a Chihuahua mixed with a mini wiener dog, and they're both 3/4 Chihuahua. So this one, the fat one that looks like a wiener dog, is the same ratio, 3/4 Chihuahua, as the one that looks like a Chihuahua.
That's wild.
Hilarious.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of when I saw them are these dachshunds, right?
Yep.
So they are wiener dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
technically,
awesome.
they're only a quarter wiener dog, but
That's
it is
awesome.
what it is.
No.
One last thing I want to on cigar etiquette. One thing I want to touch on with you guys before I forget is the relighting of the cigar. Now, you guys haven't let your cigar truly go out, so you guys are relighting it like a normal person would. But one thing I found out from that dude from Altidas, or Altidus, or whatever, he was saying when the cigar truly goes out and you're starting it again from cold, he was saying you toast it like you normally would,
Right.
but then you want to blow out first. And the reason for that is when the tobacco dries after it's been burned, those oils turn into crystals. And if they're relit directly like that,
exactly,
they turn really bitter, and you shoot all that back through the rest of the cigar. So you want to like light it and then blow out and then finish lighting it before you suck that shit back through. Have you guys heard about this?
Blowing it out kind of cleanses.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's and there's probably a full bunch of Reddits on that etiquette as well. But
YouTube is such a great resource for this shit.
For
It's
sure.
ridiculous.
I mean, for any of it, and there's really no wrong way. I mean, there's wrong ways to do it, but those types of tips are huge. When it comes to cigar smoking. But for sure, if you were to smoke half of a cigar and leave it, you definitely got to knock off the ash and make sure that it's fully lit and removed of those crystals that you're talking about before you bring it back in.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to interject that because there were so many things I wanted to get to with you guys. I was like, I don't want to get out of here and go, oh, I forgot to ask him about this.
Okay.
I forgot to ask them about this. I forgot to ask them about this.
Right.
Well, we'll have to do this again sometime. This was good.
Yeah,
it was
this
a
is a
lot of fun.
blast, dude. I'm having a great time with you guys. And I'm not trying to rush you out of here by any means. We can talk about whatever you guys want. I just wanted to make sure I at least remember to ask that before we wrap up.
No, absolutely. No. So, yeah, I mean, that's... I think we covered the main aspects that we wanted to cover.
Well, and while you were pissing, I was telling him one of these days or one of these years going forward, I got to come down to your guys' place. I got to see this in person.
We'd like to have you.
Take the wife down there, make a vacation out of it. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just...
We've never taken our wives down there.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe not then.
Maybe Marco and I.
I'll leave the wife at home.
But
she'd be pissed. She'd be so mad.
So the interesting part about where a lot of these cigars are made is it's... I mean, there's some nice areas for sure, but I mean, in Dominican Santiago, it's essentially like a second world. Nicaragua is essentially third world.
Let me just share a few stories. Okay, Santiago, 1.25 million people. Okay, 1 million of them work in the cigar industry. The other 250,000 who are the support, like hotels and restaurants, and so everybody's in the cigar business in Santiago.
Crazy.
Everybody.
Crazy.
And they have, where we stay is
Camp David.
Camp David is up on the, remember it's a valley. whole city of Santiago is in a valley. We're up on the top of one of the mountains overlooking the city.
It's the most amazing view, amazing hotel. The view is just unbelievable, spectacular.
Because we're up on top of the mountain.
And this, from your website, this is planted in your family as a tradition because of Victor Vito.
Right. Yep.
So that's your great grandfather.
Correct.
So that's your grandfather.
No, right? It's on
my wife's side,
on the mother's side. But
that's what the V is in Vito.
That's what I figured.
And so it gets back to what we were talking about is, he comes over from Italy on Ellis Island, and not a dime in his pocket, and sparks a cigar to commemorate that accomplishment. So again, it's not that you've made it or you're a rich guy or what. It's celebrating those little accomplishments. And then also smoking the cigar about what could come in the future, your plans and scheming for the future, and sitting around with your buddies and talking about future and milestones that could be coming too. So it's a really nice representation of what the brand is about. So it's we use cigars as a big celebratory thing, in our lives for all the events that we encounter as well.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Like, the morning cigar is cool, but I feel like if I wake up and I smoke a cigar with that coffee, first of all, I'm smoking cigars all day now. Like, it's just a thing where it's like, now I'm having 3 cigars today instead of 1.
Right.
Number 2, I feel like I don't appreciate it as much, which leads me to number 3. My favorite cigar to smoke is you've done something that day. Like, you worked your ass off, or you accomplished something or whatever, and it's that late night, I'm going to wrap up my day, I'm going to go relax. That's my favorite cigars at the end of the night. What is your favorite time during the day to smoke a cigar, and why?
You go first.
Well, mine's based on weather. It's if I'm doing any type of yard work or out on the deck with my friends, we got a fire in the fire pit, it's the best time right then.
Yeah, and for me too, it's it's usually shared with other people or family, and you're sitting back. And what I always talk about with cigars, it's hard to be in a bad mood when you're smoking a cigar. You're usually relaxed. You're usually
telling jokes,
or telling stories,
drinking some scotch.
Yeah, or talking about the positive things in life that can happen. You're usually not in a bad mood when you're smoking cigars. So it's really a symbol of celebration. And the other thing is, I love having a cigar on the golf course too.
It's the best time.
Yeah, and you usually, how many do you get through, or what?
1 on the front, 1 on the back. You gotta have 2 cigars.
Yeah, and so and cigars have been a big part of golf for us, and that's actually one of the big forums that we use, and through your JTK distribution. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, if a place doesn't have a big humidor or have the facilities for a nice cigar, we have these little plexiglass humidors. They're 1 foot by 1 foot by 18 inches tall, and it holds 100 cigars, and we put those in a number of golf courses
or liquor stores.
Liquor stores. You'll see them around town.
I need one.
There you go.
I need one for that corner.
That actually would look really good right there for sure. But it's another, so that's another branch of the Marco V business where we wanted to bring cigars to where people like to experience cigars, so golf courses or liquor stores that may be intimidated or not want to go into a particular cigar shop, similar to the experience that you were telling earlier. And
it's more of an impulse thing at a liquor store where you're buying your hooch And then you go, oh, there's a cigar right there at the register.
Yep, I was just gonna say you put them right next to the little bottles behind the register.
Yeah, you're those little
Grab your little
fireballs.
12-pack, and then you're sitting here. Yeah, I'll take a little bottle of that Fireball. In fact, you know what? Give me 2 cigars.
Right,
Exactly right.
And so it's been a really cool part of our business that it's essentially, like you said, 100 Marco V cigars, different blends that shows
You can
the brand
see through it. It's all plexiglass, so you get to see them.
And the cool part about that is we can guarantee the humidity and temperature within those cigars, so you know the cigars are taken care of in that particular venue. So it's another way to bring cigars to people that don't want to go to cigar shops.
That's super smart too, dude. That's brilliant.
I have one of my customers has
especially if you're the only one. Sorry, especially if you're the only one who has cigars at that golf course.
Yeah,
like if nobody else is smart enough to do that, you become the de facto cigar for these guys, unless they're bringing their own.
Right.
Or unless they're entertaining one of their big time business clients.
Yeah.
And then they want to buy a $15 cigar.
So in those, think about them as mini stores, and so let's say there's 10 slots, 6 of them will be Marco V slots, and then we'll make sure to put the ones that are really high sell, like the Monte Cristos, HL and Romeo and Julietas in there as well. So they have a selection in those, and then
it's not just Marco V's.
Right. And so we provide that. So they're mini cigar stores in liquor stores, and then the country clubs are a big business for us as well. So we'll utilize that model in those places as well. So it's fun. Yeah. And so there's golf courses.
Do you golf?
I mean,
disc golf.
No.
I have. I was really into disc golf for a while. That's why when you were going to the bathroom, I was telling him. But I threw up my shoulder somewhere around like 27, 28, and it never healed right. So I
too much of a
too much. Well, it's funny because I didn't throw it out disc golfing. I threw it out throwing a football.
Oh yeah.
Like 30 feet in the air to try to knock a beehive's nest, a hornet's nest or whatever.
Something. Yeah,
or tore my rotator cuff. I fucked my right shoulder up bad, and now it affects me when I'm disc golfing. Like sometimes I can get through an entire day just fine, like a whole literal 18 holes, I'm fine. But
can you smoke a cigar while you're playing disc?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. The
when
disc golf culture is very much like golf, but it's a lot of younger people, and it's a lot of blue collar types. So there's a lot of beer drinking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weed smoking. Yeah. There's a lot of cigarette smoking on the disc golf course, but cigars never really made it in there. But I guarantee you, because it's plexiglass, so you just throw the Bovida packs in there. Like I guarantee you, if you guys got one up at Blue Ribbon Pines, people would start smoking cigars while disc golfing, because it's a 27-hole disc golf course on this guy's. He's a landscaper, and he has this private land. He owns sod fields and a tree farm.
Right.
And in this entire thing, he built one of probably the most beautiful disc golf course in the Midwest.
How many holes?
27.
27.
And it's absolutely incredible. And in the middle of it, he has a shack so literally halfway through your 27 holes, there's a shack where you can buy beer.
Stop for a beverage?
Food, whatever you want. And
can't buy weed yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But I bet you fucking sell some weed.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But I guarantee you, if there was one in there, and that's where it would start. Like you would get in Blue Ribbon and it would take over, because there's enough people that go to Blue Ribbon. You'd put cigars in their head where they'd start bringing cigars to other disc golf courses.
Yeah,
people I got.
Yeah, and we similar to that concept, we're constantly looking at unique brand partnerships where it makes sense. So you think of restaurants or bars that have outdoor patios, and that's been a nice forum for us. And then even really high-end men's clothier like Martin Patrick has a dedicated Marco V humidor. So a guy buys a really nice suit, he gets a Marco V with it too.
No shit, huh?
So it's all these different avenues. So and so that's where we're really trying to partner with different brands that help complement the Marco V brand. And I think the disc golf would be a really cool one as well.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, man, they'll do it. Like, those guys they'll spend $20-$30 on a disc that they lose that day in the water. You know what I mean? Like,
so is it like they're going after so it's not like a golf ball you hit in the water and you forget it. They're going. Do they go after the disc if it goes in the water?
Yeah, but there's a lot of times you just don't get it back.
Oh my gosh.
Think of like a penny, right? It hits the water and it may go in here, but once it hits the water, it goes, and it's 40 feet over there.
Yeah.
In the middle of a pond or in a river or in a lake.
We have a nephew who's really big in ultimate frisbee.
Yeah.
You've seen that or heard about it?
Yeah. That shit's cool, man.
Yeah.
And that's getting really popular
It
too.
is. It's a co-ed thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild, but yeah, it's the we try to think outside the boundaries of what you can do with cigars, and I've been really impressed to see disc golf really come around.
That shit's on ESPN now.
Well, there's guys signing big contracts too. It's just freaking wild.
Yeah, when I was in it, I wanted to start a team, and I was going to treat it like a NASCAR team. So we would have like 6 or 8 guys, and then it's an individual sport, so we'd go join a tournament. But then it didn't matter who won as long as it was somebody from our team.
Your
then
group.
we won.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, and then we can get sponsors, right? We'll get fucking t-shirts, like the whole deal. I wanted to scale the whole thing up.
That's brilliant.
We were trying to come up with a name, and Chain Gang was the one we wanted, but we stole that. So we were always trying to come up with a better name.
Oh.
And in disc golf, a hole-in-one is called an ace.
Okay.
So then we were like, well, let's just be the ace holes, right? But that immediately I was like, God, but that's going to be hard to get sponsors to. Mm-hmm. It's a little too, profane,
on
so
the
to speak.
edge.
So what happened to that idea then?
I don't fucking know, man. Dude, it's the same thing with like being a musician. Try to get that, and I'm sure you understand this as well as anybody, is trying to get that many people on the same page moving forward in one direction. It's pulling teeth, man.
Yeah.
And unless you got somebody with money who wants to step up and make it happen, it's very hard to take an idea like that and actually make it a realization, right? Like something that actually happens in the real world. It's fucking... Plus, when you're working with musicians and disc golfers and comedians, they're so irresponsible and unreliable. Some of them freak out. Dude, there's one buddy who he's a musician. He's got a YouTube channel, does very, very well. And I wanted to get him and 2 other podcasters here locally to come together and do what I called the 4 dorkmen of the apocalypse, right? And he didn't want to do it because I was like, yeah, and I want to do it like once a year. And if it's really popular, then maybe we'll do it like every 6 months or maybe even every 3 or 4 months, right?
A big tournament?
No, just like a group podcast. But specifically with the 4 podcasters that are here doing it for real. And he fucking lost his shit because it felt like too big of a commitment. And he's like, I'm just doing this for fun and now it's getting too serious. And I'm like, dude, you come on the podcast.
Right.
Like, you do your own thing. All I'm asking is like we just coordinate it a few times a year.
Right.
But that was too much for him, So to answer your question in a very elaborate fashion, is those are the type of people that you deal with.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, it's like we're already disc golfing. Like, we're already joining these tournaments. You see what I'm saying? Like, awesome. That's all I want to do is just like everything we're doing, let's just make it a little bit more legitimate and see if we can make money. Like, we're already doing it. Why not try to monetize it? What the fuck? And that's why I think like the cigar thing, my buddy's like, so you gonna like, would you ever start a cigar company?
Yeah.
I was like, fuck no. I don't have time to manage it. Is what I'd be way more interested in. I mentioned this to you guys already. I'd be way more interested in down the road if I'm building my brand and I'm, doing something cool, would be to collaborate with a company like yours or anybody really who's already doing something like that.
Right.
And then because By the Thousands, really, really good heavy metal band from here, they hooked up with a brewery and did a beer called By the Thousands. And it was fucking awesome. They did a whole event at the brewery and the band showed up and sold merch and they played their music over the PA. And I was like, how come you guys aren't playing tonight? And they're like, I don't know. We never really thought about it. But I'd be way more interested in something like that, doing a collaboration.
And you see,
which honestly, we could I'll just pay for the labels and we just slap my name on the fucking house blends and we'll just call it a day.
Well, and
you don't have to be creative.
You see that happening a lot. I mean, and the brand partnerships like that, as K-Fan or whatever, doing a beer with Utables or whatever. There's different stuff.
93X did one with somebody too.
Yeah,
I think it was Grain Belt or something.
Right. So there's all sorts of different stuff like that going on too. So yeah, I mean, there's the options are endless. That's for sure.
Hell yeah. Well, you guys got anything else you want to cover?
Nope.
Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
This was a blast, dude. I really appreciate you guys being here, man. This was an absolute blast for me. A real honor to have you guys on as well. And
it's an honor for us to be here.
I'm really excited about our partnership and everything moving forward. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fruitful. And
yeah,
I don't know if you guys have seen any orders come through, but hopefully people are discovering you and buying cigars through your website, or worst case, go into a tobacco shop.
Yeah, go into a tobacco shop, and if anybody has any questions or wants to learn anything further, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
And you guys ship internationally?
Yeah.
Okay, because we got way more listeners on the audio side globally than we do YouTube locally.
Okay,
if that makes any sense. So you guys might get an order from Germany.
Sure.
That's probably a better chance than one of my degenerate musician friends from Minneapolis ordering.
No.
How about Australia or New Zealand?
We got fans. Yep. New Zealand, Philippines, Korea, China, Russia. Fuck, dude. Yeah, Ireland, France. I should print out that list and show you guys.
Your reach is big, man.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we don't have a lot of listeners. I'm not Joe Rogan by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not even as successful as Joe Rogan was when he had 30 episodes up. He was already way bigger than I am. But
he's a cigar smoker, by the way.
Yeah, just started, fucker. Like, I get into cigars, and all of a sudden he's into cigars. He changes.
He was on one of the most recent covers of Cigar Aficionado.
Was he? Yeah, that fuck. That fuck. I love Joe Rogan, don't get me wrong, but that whole cigar thing pissed me off. Right. Well, because guys like us, we really understand and care about cigars, right? Dude came with those cigars, and he's like, "I got a gift for you." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah. So these are cigars. These are official JRE cigars. These are Joe Rogan cigars." And he's like, "Okay, cool." And he doesn't understand. He does. He has his own cigar now, and you can't buy them anywhere. But somebody like Perdomo or somebody put a new wrapper on one of their deals and gave it to Joe, and now Joe has an unlimited supply of cigars. Dude, he doesn't even know what they are.
That is funny.
He has no idea, no appreciation.
He's not smoking cigars during his podcast like you.
I mean, he is, but he doesn't care. He doesn't appreciate it. He doesn't understand, and it's like, yeah, dude, this is a cool fucking thing that these guys did for you, and you're just like, oh, okay, I'll smoke your cigars. And now he's fucking smoking them and showing up on Cigar Aficionado. Like, dude, you don't know what you're doing. Like, this is the last guy, but he's a big name, so I get it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, we got another one, because that's Cigar Aficionado's deal. For years, it was like, well, we're friends with Michael Jordan.
Right.
Have you ever seen those videos of dudes sitting down with MJ?
Well, he smoked a cigar through his whole documentary.
Yep.
Michael Jordan, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think the two best celebrities for cigars in the history of cigars are Arnold Schwarzenegger and
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Those two are the two best things that ever happened to the cigar industry as far as celebrities go.
Yeah.
And then you have the opposite. You have Cam Newton. Have you ever watched his podcast? It's a goddamn dumpster fire. It is. Him and Logan Paul are probably the worst podcasters on earth.
Really?
Yeah, and Cam, it could be great. It could be great because it's very, very based on cigar smoking. Like, it's very oriented towards cigar smoking. But it's Cam fucking Newton, dude. So he sits there with those ridiculous clown outfits on. Like, he looks like a goddamn clown. He's wearing these obnoxious hats and these elaborate suits. And it's like, dude, fuck off. Like, even Arnold doesn't do that. Like, somebody who's like truly rich.
Right.
You know what I mean? He sits there in like shorts and shoes like I'm wearing in a t-shirt
Yeah.
and smokes a cigar. Like this is
that was Cam's bit
too much.
during his press conferences and
Exactly.
everything like that. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. Is it's like it's not a bit.
Yeah.
He took that into his own podcast, and it's distracting. It's like, dude, take the fucking hat off and just sit there like a normal person.
Have this one later.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
And then
later.
and then he doesn't ventilate the room.
Oh.
So as you're watching this podcast, it just gets
Smoky.
grayer and grayer and grayer and grayer. Like even here, I open up this shit. So unless you're smoking like on camera, that's clear as day.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no smoke here.
Yeah, it's surprising. That's why when you asked me, you're like, "Do you smoke cigars?" I mean, you probably don't want that around your equipment. I was like, "Oh, that's not an issue. Like we smoke cigars down there."
Not many homes you can smoke cigars in anymore.
Yeah,
That's pretty
it's
nice.
true. It's very true. All right, well, let's wrap this up,
All right,
guys.
man.
Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us. Please like, subscribe. I want to hit 350 by the end of the day today. I would really appreciate that. If not, when you guys watch this back, and go check these guys out. The link's in the description. Marco V Cigars. Literally, whether you're listening back on audio in a few days or you're watching it right now, there's a link in the description. Do you guys have a promo code that you want to throw out there for them? I won't put it in the description, but if you want to throw it out. So if they actually watched this and sat through, do you have a discount code you want to throw out there for them?
Yeah, how about we'll do 15% off and do the Extravaganza 15. Extravaganza 15.
Sick. All right, well, here we go. And I'm not putting that in the description because we're just going to do this as a limited time thing. So Extravaganza 15, and when can you guys have that active?
Yeah, we'll have it active within the next hour.
Awesome. Sick. Well, there you guys go. I didn't think we were going to get a discount code because they're already so fairly priced.
Yeah.
And that's what I told people.
For special listeners to this thing.
Yeah, that's
well,
awesome.
and as far as our new cigars, the 5 new Bravados that you've tried, Cigar Aficionado, in the most recent issue has us
December
90s.
Oh, I got that. Hold on.
90s.
Yeah, pull that open. Oh, you got them. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Okay.
There it is. Yeah, that was the Cigar Insider, and then which is the online format for Cigar Aficionado, and then they also put that Black Sapphire in the most recent issue of Cigar Aficionado as a 90. So nice. So that's some proof against.
It's a little overexposed, but
no,
I think they've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, these are the two. So the DGX, which is the one we've been smoking.
Yep.
Right.
And then the Black Sapphire. That's your like high-end Maduro, and it's in a torpedo too.
Yep, absolutely. And
Last question: how do you guys recommend people cut a torpedo?
That one's a straight cut. We recommend cut the tip off the torpedo.
And how far down?
Again, about an 1/8 inch.
Well,
or a little bit further on that one
because it's so pointy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get a
open it
nice,
up.
almost like a punch type cut once you do that straight cut on that particular
That's
one.
exactly what I would recommend too. Because I chopped one of those off and I got a little thin with it.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to draw. And this was all torpedoes, not
Right.
just you guys. And so I find myself cutting it lower and lower until
Yep.
I find that perfect draw.
Yep, that's what we'd recommend as well.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe. Like I said, I want to hit 350 by the end of the day. And yeah, let's do this again, man. Let's
All right,
have
man. Appreciate it,
Let's
guys.
have you guys back in the summer.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Awesome,
absolutely.
man. All right. Thank you guys. We're out.